What's up, everyone? It's the Interview Queen Alicia Toot here, and be sure to watch True Heel Heat.
Yo, what up? You know what it is. It's your boy AJ Francis reporting to you live from New York City, the birthplace of hip-hop. And I'm telling you that I'm only tuned in with True Heel Heat Wrestling. Holla at me.
Hello everyone, it's the hardcore legend Mick Foley wishing a nice day to everyone there, right there at True Heel Heat. Yeah!
Welcome to True Heel Heat, the place where we use insider terms because we think we know what the fuck we're talking about, even though we don't. My name's Maxwell Jacob Friedman, and I'm better than you, and you know it.
Hello. It is me, your True Heel Phenom SP3. We are live on the True Heel Heat YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter for our AEW WrestleDream 2024 review, discussing last night's show from Tacoma, Washington, and the end of Bryan Danielson's full-time career. I am joined today by my good brothers, my good friends here today, my co-host over at the True Heel Heat flagship podcast every Saturday. He is the True Draw himself. Josh, how are you feeling?
I'm doing good. What a show last night, right?
They definitely hit the feelings. I've been seeing it being called AEW's Empire Strikes Back. I like it to more reference it's AEW's Infinity War. We're now entering the end game. And joining us today, the good brother over at the NWA podcast, Post Wrestling. He even does some work with WrestleNomics, one of the smartest individuals in the land and wrestling media. Professor Kris is joining us today. How are you doing?
I am doing fine after watching Wrestle Nightmare, man. That shit was like watching like Precious, you know. Ew. Oh my god. Let's talk about it.
We got to talk all about it for sure. We appreciate y'all if you are joining us live. Appreciate y'all if you're watching us on demand. Remember to show your appreciation back the simplest way possible. Let's drop the thumbs up on this video. You can also share this video with all your wrestling fans, friends, and family on all your favorite social media platforms. If you are new to the True Heel Heat YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. Hit the bell to stay notified for all the great content here. And of course, if you're watching us on any other platform, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, you could drop a heart, a like, a laugh emoji, an angry emoji. However, AEW WrestleDream made you feel. You can let us know with those emotes. And of course, if you're watching on any of those platforms, sound off in the live chat. We love to interact with all of you guys. Hear your thoughts on last night's pay-per-view. Good, bad, ugly, indifferent, however you feel about AEW WrestleDream, you could sound off in the live chat. But of course, if you're feeling generous, you want to give back to what we do here, and you want to have your comment highlighted on screen, you could send a super chat donation. Any dollar amount matters. It goes back to the contributors that you see on screen with us here, and we always appreciate your support. And no matter how you feel, just don't be a dick. Just don't be a dick. Be nice to one another, even if you disagree. But we got the anonymous Ron, who says AEW really looking more and more like WCW each time, and it's scary. I mean, that's that. If that's how you feel, that's how you feel. I don't know if that's a bad thing though. There are some good times in WCW, and if you think that this is like reminiscent of NWO era WCW with the ending, I can understand. We also got here in the chat G Loke joining us today, saying what it do at True Hill Heat. Man, I missed the show, so can't wait to hear. Smash up that like and let's go. We also got Bala B, who says wouldn't be an AEW pay-per-view review without someone new coming in with concern trolling.
I mean, honestly, that's how I took it, because I'm just like, what is it about WCW that's like? I would like to see the elaboration on that, because I seen WCW and I seen a lot of bad from WCW, and so I'm trying to figure out like what about last night that you compare it to WCW, because I didn't see a finger poke of doom in the main event. I didn't see that, so I don't know. I'm just saying.
But like I said before, I don't think comparing it to WCW is necessarily always a bad thing. Like I think that because we are 23 years removed from WCW, the stigma of WCW is much worse than the people that actually lived through it. If you actually lived through it, you do know that there was good things that WCW did, that it wouldn't be so bad for them to like do. So like that's why I said if you could provide more content, of course, feel free to do that. But
see like this bullshit. You see what I mean? Like this bullshit. Like don't give me this. Like don't give me this. Like really? 2000 WCW? Like really?
I mean, the if you're referring to their business end, that is fair. But to say last night show was anything like WCW in 2000, then you didn't watch the show. You didn't watch the show.
I don't even think it's fair. The WCW in 2000 was like a sinking ship, sinking super fast. AEW just got a TV deal that's gonna put them over the top and probably make them profitable. So even pump the brakes on that.
Always fair. We got EBB joining us in the chat. Good to see you today. He says good wrestling as always with their pay-per-views, though I was scarred more by Excalibur's fake crying than the post-match attack. I think that was Excalibur's best work on commentary.
I do too, man. I honestly do as well.
We also got I Make Beats, who says yo SP and THH getting a shout out on Wrestle Talk. Props. Good to see Sat again twice in one weekend. Sat doing great things. Check out when you're done with our review, check out Sat and Luke Owen, one of the good brothers, who did a review over on the Wrestle Talk YouTube channel. I just got done watching that as well. Alexander Fitzgerald, who says that was one of the best wrestling shows I've been to in years. I forgot. Yeah, Alexander told us during our preview he was going to the show. He says, so glad I got to witness that triple threat match live. That was one of the, spoiler alert, that's one of the greatest three-way matches ever that I've seen. Bar none. I think that's up there. We got I Make Beats. It says, was a stacked show. Spent most of today watching it and got New Japan show tonight/tomorrow. Yes, indeed. Getting ready for King of Pro Wrestling. We also got Alexander Fitzgerald, who says, stop it. WCW 2000 was trash. And the only thing comparable to WCW 2000 is WWE 2019. Okay.
Oh,
all right. That's, I mean,
he ain't too far off on that, because I remember 2019 WWE was rough.
Yeah.
We got
Damn.
Valabi making a good point. They had more attendance than last year's WrestleDream, so he says stop the fucking cap. But of course, there's gonna be trolls who troll back and start saying nobody talking about WrestleDream attendance. Now I heard a lot of people talking about WrestleDream attendance
Right.
apparently, but he says, "What's that Wednesday night looking like?" If that's the only thing that you could think about after a show like last night, then you're just trolling. You're trolling, or you're in bad faith. You're in bad
Right.
faith. But it's
Yeah,
okay.
Well, I mean,
It's
it is just that he's one of the most biased guys in here, and he tries to convince us. Oh, I'm not biased. I watch New Japan. I watch every company. That doesn't mean that you're not biased. Like that don't mean shit. It's like we peep it already at this point. We see his scheme, and I don't know, bro. You might need a new gimmick because it's getting stale. Because it's like if we could catch it at this point, and then that means it's not very good. So you might have to improve on that, or watch TNA.
To be fair, we have someone on the channel who does a similar bit, and he got called out.
Oh no, believe me, and it gets old, and it's gotten to a point that we catch the bullshit too on that. So it's just like, guys, you got to get better at this. Like that's all I'm asking. It's like if you're gonna do something like this, just get better. Like watch TNA. I'm pretty sure you don't watch TNA. Watch that every Thursday night.
Or just watch Eric Bischoff's podcast. He does pretty well in coming up with new ways. So hey, but let's get what is kind of your overall thoughts? Your overall kind of fallout. You had a night to sleep on it. From WrestleDream, Professor Kris, we'll start with you. What was kind of your overall thoughts on the show? And if you could put it into one word, one sentence, what would it be?
I'm still processing it, man. That's how I feel. Once I talk to y'all about it a little bit, I'll have more coherent thoughts. There were a lot of parts that I did feel moved some characters backwards, and some stuff that I thought was good, but yeah, it's weird.
Fair. Josh, what about you?
Surprising. I was going into this pay-per-view, not the build-up wasn't great. It was not a great build-up to WrestleDream. And there was about like 4 or 5 matches I was looking forward to, and I thought the overall show was great. Even like it didn't feel long either, like at least to me. Like usually we have like these AEW shows where it's like fucking packed with like 12, 15 matches for the main card. Didn't feel like that yesterday. So I felt like for a main show to be 4 hours and that many matches, I thought it was a good, it was a good pace because, compared to last weekend, we had a 3.5 hour show for 5 matches. So, I mean, I'll take yesterday. I'll take last night.
There we go. We got Big Man Does. He says, I felt like they build the important matches well, just not the mid card. I can agree with that. I've said it once. I've said it again on this channel. I thought that the build to WrestleDream was lackluster and was the worst of the year for AEW. But I also said when I was talking about it, the show usually delivers. So AEW pay-per-views always deliver, and that's the one part of their business that is doing well in 2024, and they're up. They're up on year over year in 2024 for their pay-per-views. But before we get into the main card, we got to talk about 0 Hour. You had 4 matches on 0 Hour and a couple of different angles that they did. First up, very quickly, we'll go through. You had Brian Cage defeating Atlantis Jr. to win the Ring of Honor World Television Championship. The crowd popped for the finish to this matchup as Brian Cage finished them off with the drill claw to become the new Ring of Honor World Television Champion. This felt like a necessary kind of evil because Atlantis Jr. became champion this past summer and pretty much has been on ROH. I think the best way to say it is sporadically. So he hasn't done anything with the title. It was about time that they put it on someone who is regularly on ROH. Professor Kris, what did you think about the title change here?
Yeah, I had no problem with it. I think Brian Cage needs something. So I mean, hey.
Agreed. Agreed. What about you, Josh?
I was fine with it. Brian Cage was the person I picked to win, and it happened. So maybe good things will happen for him.
Yeah, it's about time. Brian Cage, the only title he's won since signing with AEW was the FTW Championship. So better late than never. Then you had Anna Jay making her first pay-per-view appearance or 0-hour appearance since returning from Stardom in Japan. Anna Jay picked up a victory over Harley Cameron. Both ladies look good here. I continue to be impressed by Harley Cameron, who just seems like only a woman that's had less than 20 matches. She seems to be very well versed in what she's able to do. She's not like the greatest, not very good, but I would say solid enough where she's able to kind of fill these spots here. Anna Jay picking up a victory, and she seems more confident since her return from Japan. Any quick thoughts on this one, Josh?
It was fine. I do agree. Harley is what WWE was hoping with Maxine, and you see the results on that. Yeah, Anna Jay does look different too. She's looked different ever since she's come back. She's in. It looks like her striking too. Like she's learned from that as well. So I mean, it was a solid match. Solid match. Nothing too crazy.
They did botch the finish because I think the referee kind of put Harley's shoulder down because her shoulder was up, and he like positions her shoulder to be down before he counts to 1, 2, 3. So that was really noticeable, but not anything that I think took away from the match too much. Kris, any thoughts on either Harley Cameron or Anna Jay?
I missed this match. I think I made like a Domino's run, so I missed the match, but I did sit through the entire pay-per-view. Unlike the last pay-per-view, I had to go back and watch clips of it, but I missed this one. Sorry.
No worries at all. And what I thought was hilarious, a hilarious cameo that we had on the show before the next matchup. There was a backstage segment with MXM Collection talking about they had a special guest to be in their corner for their matchup against the Acclaimed, and it was none other than Rico. I popped so much. I was like, these dudes went and got Rico. What hole did they dig Rico from? I was like, what the hell? I've not seen him in a decade. It led to Rico being in the corner of MXN Collection as they went against the Acclaim here on the 0 Hour. And this was a fun little comedy matchup. You got the spot in the ring with Daddy Ass and Rico. He laid him out with the Fame Master. In the end, it was Acclaim picking up the victory with the arrival into the mic drop for the 1, 2, 3. Professor Kris, what did you think about Rico's cameo and the Acclaim picking up the victory here?
Yeah, so I did catch this later. Rico's got some city miles on him, definitely. But yeah, I don't know, man. This is I mean, that was cool seeing him, but the connection, it took me a second to put together the connection because he was the manager of Billy and Chuck. And he put together their commitment ceremony. So I mean
that got mainstream attention back in 2010.
They got mainstream attention, and they ended up it was on not Good Morning America. I think it was the Today Show it was on.
Yeah.
And they got like acclaim from the Glad and all that, and then they just ended up like screwing over that whole community with, hey man, I'm not gay. It's like, I don't know what that was, but yeah, it was interesting seeing Rico there.
Yeah, We got Vala B giving us the background. Yes, Rico was the ace of OVW because Jim Cornette loved him back in like 2001, 2002. He was
Right.
in the same class as John Cena, Batista, Brock Lesnar, Randy Orton, and he was tag team champions with the Prototype, aka John Cena back then. So very, very good, very good. Vala B says, which community did they screw?
Oh, come on, man.
They shunned them. They shunned the gay community after freaking just promoting it as a legit commitment ceremony.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
of course, in the end, they only had 3 minutes. 3 minutes to complete the segment.
I know, right? And Billy Gunn has gone back on several shoot interviews saying that he wishes they would have went through with it, I mean, that's the only thing that made sense,
Because of how it turned out, they could have just went through with it or wanted to go through with it instead of them doing the double take and being like, no, this was all a plan. This was all a joke. Rico, you put us up to this. And they just had it not go through by Eric Bischoff exposing himself and 3-minute warning jumping.
Right, yeah. It's like, seriously, that's how you could have not gone through with it. I mean, the wrestling community was different back then. I get it, but it's like, I do think even back then it was starting to move in a good direction, and crap like that, I think, brought the wrestling community back a little bit, because I mean, they've never really been kind to the gay community. Like, even with like Goldust and stuff, it was like almost like he was like this gay predatory guy, so it's like, you're doing something good for the community just to yank it like that. So, and come on, I know I just said that, but let's be mature.
Backstage, we saw TBS champion and NJPW Strong Women's champion Mercedes Moné showing up with Camille. They arrive at the building and demanding for a backstage hand, talking to Queen Aminata where her locker room and water is. Aminata interrupts and says that she doesn't care what Mercedes has done in this business. There's no need to be that rude. Monet mocks Aminata and told her to get out of her face as she and Camille storm off. And it was announced later by commentary that it will be Mercedes Moné going one-on-one with Queen Aminata this Wednesday, AEW Dynamite from San Jose, California. Hey, they're announcing matches for Dynamite early and setting them up on using any time available to set up things for Dynamite. This is a step in the right direction, I guess. What did you think about Mercedes setting up this matchup with Queen Aminata here?
The only thing I could really think about it was, I hope this was a pre-tape. Did they fly Mercedes all the way to the edge of the Pacific Rim for this segment? It just seems real out of place if they did. It was a fine segment, but I mean, it's like she doesn't need to go all the way to Washington State for this kind of shit,
Yeah. We got Alexander saying Mercedes versus Aminata on Dynamite. Looks like he's looking forward to that one. Emmanuel saying Mercedes and Queen Aminata on Wednesday. Oh, buddy. Hey, I think that if Mercedes going to have a good shot at having a good matchup, or at least a better matchup than our last couple of ones on Dynamite, Queen Aminata is not bad of a choice there. Then you get Tony Schiavone. He was on stage. He brings up WrestleDream being about the memory of Antonio Inoki, as he brings out Tony Khan along with Inoki's grandsons Hirota and Naito Antonio. As they led the crowd in Inoki's chant, his signature chant. Tony Khan, he's not the best at public speaking. He has this weird public speaking voice.
Yeah. I'm to say he didn't show up to the last press conference because he's embarrassed by this thing, man. They had the chance to lead us in that chant, like they could have done a better job of leading the fans into that chat, building up to the pay-per-view. It was like they had like a few weeks, just put it on TV and say, hey, we're doing a tribute to Antonio Inoki for like, 3 weeks or so, and just put that phrase up like every time you show the vignette or whatever, and maybe people would have chanted it with you. But that was a fail, man. None of those fans knew what to chant. I barely knew what to chant, and I actually am familiar with Antonio Inoki. So, I mean, TK's got to do a better job of not assuming people know this inside baseball stuff about wrestling.
I agree there. And they didn't even have it queued up where it would do it multiple times. They had it queued up for one time, and then Tony was like, "Can you put it up again?" Yeah.
so awkward, man. Like, dude is like he's becoming known for like awkward like television appearances, and it doesn't have to be this way, is all I'm saying.
Yes. We do have a super chat donation here from Vala B. Thank you so much, Vala B. Always appreciate the support you give us here on the channel. He says, I'll pay the immaturity tax. The main card was so strong. They started with Jay versus Hangman. That finish, man. We're going to get into that very shortly here. Two other moments on the 0 hour. You had a video from Adam Copeland and Dax Harwood telling fans how to donate to the families and businesses affected by Hurricane Helene. And then we had our final 0 hour matchup, which was the Outrunners, Turboy Floyd and Truth Magnum, teaming up with the conglomerations Orange Cassidy and Kyle O'Reilly to verse the Premier Order of John Silver, Alex Reynolds of the Dark Order, along with the Premier Athletes Tony Nese and Ariel Daivari. This was your party matchup for the 0 hour to get the fans excited for the show. Man, are the Outrunners over. They were the most over act on this 0 hour show. They got a huge pop when they came out, and I like the fact that they're picking up more and more victories. It seems they pick up the victory here with Total Recall on Daivari. They were crazy over with the crowd. They're along with other popular baby faces in the conglomeration. This was a nice way to close out the 0 hour and get the fans excited for the pay-per-view. This is the only match on 0 hour that I actually rated something. I gave it 3 stars. It was a nice way to kind of get the crowd going before the main card. Josh, any thoughts on this final 0 hour match?
Oh, the match was fine. Like you said, the Outrunners are crazy over. And we've been saying this for a while too, right? Like in wrestling, sometimes, right? People would talk about it's all about the gimmick and about getting yourself over. That's what these guys did. So I mean, it's good to see. Right? Like people, right. This is what some people wanted. People wanted certain gimmicks to get over, and these guys are overs. And it seems like they're putting a more focus on them to get more wins, because before this, they were just losing. So now, ever since the crowd got behind them, they've been winning. So there's something there, and it builds off of their tag team division, at least something that they've been needing for a while. So I mean, doesn't hurt them.
Yeah, it really feels like since All In, they've been in rebuild mode for versus the tag team and women's divisions, trying to fill out the rest of the card with both of those divisions. Even though I thought the women's division has definitely been better than in years past, but the tag team division did need some help, and building up the Outrunners is not the worst idea.
Yeah.
We also got Frantic World, who says that part of the 0 hour was very awkward, talking about Tony Khan. I mean, hey, it is what it is.
Yeah, it's okay. TK, man. Ah, Jesus.
That's what he's here for. Renee Paquette was backstage with Kishika Okada, who is now medically cleared. She asks him what brings him to Tacoma. He says that he's here to support the Elite. When Kyle O'Reilly walks in and asks for a match with him, he says he'll think about it, but he comes back and says, hell no, walks away, then comes back and says, bitch, O'Reilly gets it. He says next time he'll try a different approach, and he punches Okada in the face. They get separated by security and officials before Christopher Daniels ejects them from the arena. I would like to see an Okada versus Kyle O'Reilly match. Count me in for that. But let's get into the main card for AEW WrestleDream. And they started off hot in a surprising way to me because I did not expect Hangman Adam Page versus Switchblade Jay White to kick off the main card. These two men have a long storied rivalry with one another, and they set the tone for this card, in my opinion. You get early on, White slaps Page right in the face. We get multiple times dueling "fuck you, cowboy" and "cowboy shit" chants from this Washington State crowd who do not forgive Page for his actions at All Out against Washington native Swerve Strickland. We get loud "Whose house?" Swerve's house chants as well. Page starts stomping White in the corner. White answers back by going after the right leg of Page, working it over with dragon screw leg whips. Page was able to respond with a springboard lariat as he pounces on White before hitting him with a fallaway slam in the corner. He spits at White, then he picks him up, sleeper. He gives him a spinning sleeper, which got a near fall. Page continued to control the action, but I love the story of the match. It was basically Jay White finding different ways to avoid the buckshot lariat. Despite him selling the beating that Page was giving him, he just knew the one spot in the ring that he couldn't be was the center of the ring, because that way Page would hit him with the buckshot lariat. So he would go to like the different corners. He would go too close to the ropes where Page would have to hit him to try to put him back, but he would always kind of stumble the next way, stumble to the ropes in different ways. It was so clever and so subtle how he was doing it throughout the matchup. He suckered Page to the corner where he kicked out the leg. He had an underhook suplex into the corner. Series of reversal led to Page getting spiked with a DDT by White. Page flipped out a superplex, but landed awkwardly on his injured leg, which led to Switchblade hitting a flatliner for a near fall. White wanted a superplex, but Page dug at his eyes, only for White to chop block him and chop him in the chest, traps Page in the ropes, giving White free range to go after his eyes in return. White opted to play to the crowd, allowing Page enough time to hit a DVD on the apron. White refused to fall back into position for the buckshot lariat. Once again, they fought to the ramp, where White was able to punish Page by dropping him knee first on the ramp as the referee was telling him to get back into the ring. We see White in the end. He tries to go for a Blade Runner, but Page counters into the dead eye, but he hurts his knee on the way down. He goes to the apron once again, and he tries for the buckshot. He sells the knee quite a bit before even going for the flip, but then he eventually hits the flip, but his knee buckles underneath him, which allows White to pull up on him, hit the Blade Runner, and 1, 2, 3, Switchblade Jay White picks up the victory here in his big return pay-per-view matchup, coming back from injury. Big win for Switchblade Jay White here. I love that the Hangman Adam Page character is very much like Teflon. He could take as many losses as he can, and it only enhances his character, because I was more interested not in Jay White celebrating with Juice Robinson in the post-match, but I was watching Page the whole time, and him freaking out and saying that he's going to get revenge on Jay White is very intriguing. But this was a terrific opener to the show. These two guys have very great chemistry with one another. I gave this match 4.5 stars. This is the way you kick off a pay-per-view with a great match right off the rip. Professor Kris, what did you think?
Yeah, it was great seeing Switchblade come back. And I wasn't expecting him to win, but I'm glad that he did. I think that he's one of the characters on this pay-per-view that actually progressed in the right way. And I really did enjoy the interaction with him and Hangman. Very, very good match. I don't know if it's my match of the show just yet, because there is another match that I loved, but it was a very good start to the show. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, indeed. That's Jack. Actual positive comment. That's progression. I appreciate that. Evolution. Josh, what did you think about the opener, Jay White and Hangman Adam Page?
Yeah, I mean, before that, I mean, like once every 25 times, I guess, right? Before that stuff. No, but the match was great. It was great seeing Jay White back. It looked like he never really lost a step. Usually that's usually pretty good to see from somebody who hasn't been in the ring in a while, especially from an injury. So that's what stuck out too. He looked really good. And I do agree with like the whole aspect of him avoiding the buckshot lariat, especially that last one. He just counted it to the switch. That was great. No, but I thought the right person won, right? I thought coming in, it was kind of like the match could go either way, but I think it would benefit Jay White a little bit more. And you kind of saw why. Like you kind of saw that it benefited him and doesn't really lose anything for Hangman because this is just him being more unhinged from losing because you saw him like yelling at the crowd too. So it's just great like that.
Yeah, he has a great dynamic with the crowd right now, and he's like one of the best characters in AEW at the moment. Like I said, I don't know if I would have booked Page to take a loss this quick after losing to Swerve, but if he's not going to be in the world title picture, you kind of have to veer him off in a different direction, and him having a setback here kind of puts his focus back on Switchblade, so we could see like a follow-up to this match.
Right.
We got Alexander in the chat who says great opener. We also got Big Man Dogs who says, yeah, great match, 4.25 stars, which is high for Big Man Dogs. Big Man Dogs doesn't like to go that high. We also got
match, 2 points. Come on. Like, come on, Big Man Dogs. You know that's bullshit. You know that's more than that. Don't try to play that.
I Make Beats says it was a slobber knocker indeed. We also got Valabi who says we've been through this before. We don't know you. We don't pretend to know you. We know how you present yourself here. Exactly. Good. Because see, this is why Valabi is a very good person to have in the chat as our moderator. We appreciate you, Valabi. But next up, the second match on the main card, we had Mariah May defending the AEW Women's World Championship against Willow Nightingale. You had Nigel McGuinness, of course, being smitten on commentary with Mariah right off the rip, as Shivani agrees that she does look good, but called May a nasty lady. Nightingale used her power to gain the advantage early on. May met a cartwheeling Nightingale with a shotgun dropkick to the ropes. May then forced Nightingale, whose catchphrase is always keep smiling. She makes her smile as she has her wrapped up in the ropes. But Willow gets out of the ropes and hits her with a crazy looking pounce where Mariah May just had her legs almost onto her head after the pounce, sending her crashing from pillar to post. May swept the legs out of Nightingale in the corner as May unleashed punches and bunches on her, ground and pound for a bit. Another snap drop kick for a near fall. Mariah kept Willow grounded, attempting a kiss of death, but Nightingale answered by biting May. Nightingale put on the brakes and slammed May down repeatedly until a combo ended with a big spine buster by Willow for another near fall. May fought off of the Dr. Bomb as she countered into a release German suplex. She wanted the Storm Zero, but Willow pulled out the legs and then put on a nice looking Indian deathlock. They started trading slaps until Nightingale started slamming Mariah right into her own knee, which popped the crowd. Nightingale went for a corner cannonball, went up top for a moonsault, but Mariah was able to move out of the way, allowing Mariah to go up top for a missile dropkick. Mariah connected on Mayday, but Nightingale was able to kick out with Mariah being shocked. The crowd was loudly in favor of Willow in this one as she avoided the Storm Zero. She went for another pounce, but May met her with a headbutt. She swung for the fences to hit a lariat with a double down for both ladies as the crowd was really into the matchup at this point. Mariah floated over a Dr. Bomb as May went for a DVD. Nightingale was up on the ropes. He hit a big boot and a violent-looking running DVD in the corner for another close 2 count. May tried to go for her head scissors in the corner, but Nightingale teased that she was about to hit a power bomb, but May reversed it into the Hurricane Rana. It's a charging knee strike, and then Storm Zero for the 1-2-3. Mariah May retains the AEW Women's World Championship. I thought this was a very good matchup. I thought this was back-to-back great matches to really kick off the show here. These ladies had really great chemistry, and Willow Nightingale had one of her like better efforts. I think that both her and Kris Statlander kind of met each other on a very high level at All Out, but this was a very good follow-up matchup on pay-per-view for Willow here, giving Mariah May her best match as AEW Women's World Championship since getting the win at All In versus Timeless Toni Storm. I gave this one 4 stars. I love this match. Josh, what did you think?
Oh, the match was really good. Once it was on the second match. I mean, I kind of knew Willow was not winning, unfortunately. But I mean, overall, it was a good match. It was a really good match. Doesn't really hurt Willow.
Yeah, no, the loss doesn't hurt Willow at all. Willow's another one that the more she loses, the more we're gonna want to see her finally get the big one. And we need AEW because all of her, when you look at her resume for 2024, you would be like, oh my God, she's like one of the more accomplished women in all of women's wrestling. TBS champion, CMLL World Women's Champion, at the rivalry with Mercedes, rivalry with Kris Statlander, but all of it kind of feels like haphazardly put together. Like last year, she was NJPW Strong Women's Champion because Mercedes Moné got injured. This year, she won the CMLL title because Stephanie Vaquer basically bailed out on CMLL and went to WWE. And she was TBS champion to set up the rematch with Mercedes, where Mercedes won the title. If AEW focus in on Willow, they have one of the best female baby faces and one of the best baby faces, period, in all of wrestling. Mm-hmm. They just need to commit to her and make her a priority booking wise, and they can make her into one of the main stars, one of the faces of AEW. Professor Kris, what did you think?
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. I gotta say this about Willow too. Now, I've always thought Willow looks good, but she looks like she's been doing like some CrossFit training or something. She looked really, really good last night, just physically. Man, like I do think there is you can't keep putting her in positions in these world title matches without eventually you're going to have to pull the trigger. I do think that because if you lose too many of these world title matches, what it starts telling fans is, okay, this is a person that's never going to win the world title, right? I kind of think Sami Zayn is in that position in WWE. And you do need to start because I agree with you, Sid. I think she can be one of the biggest stars in wrestling if you use her right. She's affable. She's the girl next door. She's very, very just likable from just a fan perspective. She's awesome, and I think they need to take advantage of that fully.
Yeah, they have to just make her a priority and a focus. So I think that's what they really need to do as they go into 2025. And it felt like a new era on this show. So I'm hoping that Willow is a part in one of the bigger faces in that new era. But next up, we had the TNT Championship up for grabs as you had Jack Perry going one-on-one defending against Katsuyori Shibata. You had Shibata early on in the matchup. He just beat the shit out of Jack Perry. it felt like kind of fighting spirit, strong style, never open weight champion Katsuyori Shibata in the early going in this one, just kicking and chopping the hell out of Jack Perry. Chased him around the ring for a bit. He was basically no-selling Jack Perry a bunch of times. He shook off kicks and dared Jack Perry to hit him. A cheap shot by Jack Perry sent Shibata into the corner. Shibata was no-selling his chops and then no-sold some strikes. He answered with some loud-ass chops back. It echoed across the arena, with Shivani describing it as Wahoo McDaniel-like. Perry fired back with a forearm, but Shibata dropped him with a snap suplex. Perry spat in Shibata's face as he continued to no-sell kicks until he rolled through and booted Perry in the face before violently unleashing machine gun traps. He did but Perry was able to reverse things. He hits a draping DDT on the floor, but Shibata comes back. He hits the stalling corner drop kick and a front chancery suplex for a 2 count. We get Kawada kicks unloaded by Shibata. Shibata eventually goes for a rear naked choke, but he doesn't let go as Perry puts him on his back. He gets a bridging pin as he's still in the rear naked choke as the referee counts to 1, 2, 3. The finish came out of nowhere. The crowd heavily booed this one, but I thought it was kind of an effective way to give Perry a cheap win and still protect Shibata in the process. Shibata asks the referee what had happened, but as Perry attacked him from behind, caught him with a belt shot, he went for another. When Daniel Garcia ran down to the ring, he goes face to face with Perry. Loud ovation. The crowd was very much into Garcia here, especially when he came out. Perry does not want to fight, so he shakes his head no and bails. But at that point, the roof nearly blew off the Tacoma Dome as MJF is back in AEW. Huge pop for the first chord of his music. He comes down to the ring. We get MJF staring down with Garcia, the man he defeated at All Out, but that took him out with the Avalanche Power Driver at the last pay-per-view. But Jack Perry runs in from behind. He blasts Perry with the TNT title before bailing out of the ring. This allows MJF to take off his jacket, take off his shirt. He pounces on the attack on Garcia before taking the microphone. The last time that he saw Garcia, he said that he beat him handily, but then he went off to make several movies and make several $1 million. He brings up Garcia's bidding war, which was about as real as the Seattle Supersonics. MJF thanks Garcia, though, for telling him where he pawned his Dynamite Diamond ring in Buffalo, as it took him some time, but he found it. MJF took out his new ring, because that's not the same one, folks. Just want to let you know. He put it on, and he says Garcia is going to kiss it before he could use it, though. It's all about the boom. An even bigger pop for Adam Cole, baby. He is healthy. He is back. He even runs down to the ring like he did when he made the save for MJF at Grand Slam and shattered his ankle. MJF looked at him like he just saw a ghost as he bails out of the ring before Adam Cole can get his hands on him. Nigel McGuinness says this is only the beginning. Cole helped up Garcia, and he showed him some respect with a fist bump. And then he came out the ring and he told MJF that he is coming for him, so he can't run for long. This was, I thought, a very well done double return, because it was one thing for the MJF Garcia. You could continue that down the road. I don't think you should continue it right now. You should have Garcia focus on Jack Perry and the TNT Championship, coming through on his promise of winning a singles title in AEW. But MJF and Adam Cole is a rivalry that they should have had done last year, but Cole's injury prevented them of that. And yes, it's been very confusing to keep track of everything, because Cole turned heel on MJF at World's End when he was revealed as the Devil, the leader of Undisputed Kingdom. Then you had MJF come back when Cole was still injured at Double or Nothing and attack him. But then in the process of his feud with Will Ospreay, he turned heel. And then Adam Cole comes back as a babyface against heel MJF. It's because it's basically for the fans. It's the enemy of my enemy is my friend. MJF is an asshole now, so we're going to cheer the other asshole that turned on him because he's our favorite now, because MJF is a bigger asshole, basically. Professor Kris, right. What did you think about the matchup with Perry and Shibata and the returns of MJF and Adam Cole?
The Jack Perry still is not quite doing it for me, but I did think I didn't mind the finish of the match too much. I know that if I was there live, I probably would have been doing what that crowd was doing because it would have probably pissed me off, but I watched it on TV. I had no big issue with it. It was good seeing Garcia come back. I didn't realize how tall Garcia was. He kind of towered over MJF in that standoff. And I just didn't realize, maybe MJF is just short. I think you've seen MJF in person, Sid, so I don't know, but I was initially like, is Garcia falling for more bullshit? Because I really do hate dumb babyface syndrome, but having Adam Cole come out kind of made up for it, and then them doing the fist bump, and like you said, I mean, I guess we're just supposed to, all the other stuff with the kingdom and all that is what it is. I got no problem with it. I thought it was getting kind of stupid anyway, so give Adam Cole a good singles babyface push. Don't turn him heel again. Leave him a babyface for a while, and we should be off to the races.
Yeah, it's been a mess how this story has turned out through no fault of anybody really. Injuries you can't control. They didn't even expect Adam Cole and MJF to get over the way they did last year with Better Than You, Baby. We said that multiple times last year. Josh, what did you think about Perry and Shibata and the returns of MJF and Cole?
The match itself was solid. Jack Perry got his ass whooped most of the match, but I mean, it ended up working out. I mean, he was going to retain either way. Also sets up a Daniel Garcia TNT title match as well. And then you had the aspect of MJF coming back, right? And then you have Adam Cole coming back. So when people complain about storytelling or storylines, there's multiple storylines you could do with all of this. So, it benefits them a lot. As far as how things transpired, I mean, it's like you said, injuries happen. Fortunately, what happened at Grand Slam happened. There was no control of that. And I feel confident that they'll steer the right direction. Even if they stay away from all the double stuff, I would not be upset about that because, I mean, it ended up being a mess, right? It started off great. It started off something like interesting, but then once it started dragging because Adam Cole broke his foot, it went the way that it went. I'm in
agreement with JM about that one.
I'm saying, so like if they stay away from that, and people, but if people find things to complain about when it comes to that, then I mean, it's just like, what do you want them to do? You wanted them to stay away from storyline, and now they go back to it. What the fuck do you want at this point? Mm-hmm. So at this point, I'm fine if they stay away from that.
Right.
I wouldn't mind a feud itself because Adam Cole and MJF has shown they could work together. If it's even a team or being rivals, there's chemistry there, so I'm fine when it comes to that.
Yeah, treat this like the little kid they bought on Married with Children for that season. It's just like they never talk about him again. Treat it like that. I don't need to go back to that Kingdom stuff. I'm fully in agreement with JM on that.
I honestly think I've been saying it for a couple of weeks on AE Ramble. I think they're turning Undisputed Kingdom babyface. Because you got to remember the last time we saw on Roderick Strong on Dynamite, he shook hands with Hook. They showed respect to Hook. And then most recently on Rampage, Taven and Bennett had a matchup with the Conglomeration where they shook hands with them and showed respect to them after the match. So I think that the whole of Undisputed Kingdom is probably turning babyface. And then what we might get, I don't know if you want to go back to this. I don't know if he would be down to go back to this role, but Wardlow comes back and he's still a heel and he feuds against Undisputed Kingdom and he teams up with MJF against them.
I wouldn't mind that, but Wardlow couldn't be a slave again, man. They'd have to be on some kind of like maybe not equal footing, but just better than a fucking slave. Because if they do that, that is a backwards move.
Yeah, I agree. They should be on some type of kind of equal footing. So that is true. We do have another super chat donation. Thank you so much, Vala B. He says we can all agree to forget about the devil stuff. No need to explain anything. Pretend like nothing happened. Yeah, that never happened. It was a dark time in the AEW AEW timeline right now. But yeah. I enjoyed this double return. I thought it was a good way to kind of bring back both guys. And I agree with, I think it was Alexander Fitzgerald who said in the chat, this feels like the healthiest the AEW roster has been in a very, very long time.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, I think the only like major return we're still waiting on is Kenny Omega at this point. Kenny Omega and Adam Copeland, really.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. I know Joe should probably be back, I wouldn't say before the end of the year, but he's just been filming Twisted Metal season 2. So to be fair, he's not really an injury.
Yeah, I mean, and then he also because he canceled for this week because of the filming. He was supposed to be at New York Comic Con and he canceled.
Yeah, that Peacock money pays, so you know.
Get that bread. All right. It was time for the matchup that I think I said it on the preview. I said it on the flagship podcast. This would probably steal the show. And it exceeded my expectations. Then we had AEW International Championship up for grabs. Will Ospreay versus Ricochet versus Konosuke Takeshita. You had Don Callis on commentary. Right off the rip, you had Ricochet and Ospreay immediately double teaming Takeshita to start. That was until Ospreay and Ricochet were able to go at it. They went a mile a minute. They did the double superhero pose down spot that they've done in all their signature matches, only for Takeshita to come in and wipe both men out with a double drop kick. Takeshita sent both crashing into barricades. He was getting a really good ovation from this crowd despite being the heel in the matchup. Takeshita spiked Ricochet with a suplex before setting up a table at ringside that got another big pop from the fans. He wanted a blue thunder bomb off the apron, but Ricochet was able to float over into the ring. Takeshita missed a charging knee strike as Ricochet tried a Sasuke special, but Takeshita was able to catch him. So then Ospreay did a Sasuke special himself and wiped both men out in a really cool spot. Back inside the ring, Ricochet hit a neck breaker on Takeshita, who simultaneously connected with a DDT on Ospreay. Ricochet tried a rolling flatliner, and it allowed freaking Takeshita to hit the world-class forearm right in midair. Blue Thunder Bomb was blocked as Ospreay flew in with a handspring Pele kick to both men. All three men fought on the apron above the table as Takeshita was knocked back and forth with strikes until Ricochet dodged an Oscutter. Ospreay then launched himself off of Ricochet's back into a DVD by Takeshita on the apron. This led to Ricochet coming off the second rope with a Meteora onto Takeshita right onto the apron. Ricochet placed Takeshita on the table as he went for a dive, but Ospreay flew in and hit a Spanish fly for a 2 count. Ospreay wanted the Stormbreaker, but Ricochet popped up into a Snap Hurricane Rana for a 2 count. Ricochet blocked a Hidden Blade into a Snap Backslide Bomb for a near fall. Ricochet went up top and he rode through a 450. Ospreay hit a pop-up powerbomb into the Styles Clash that looked so smooth for a very close near fall as Takeshita broke it up. In a wild sequence in the matchup, Takeshita wiped out Ospreay with the bastard driver into a deadlift German suplex. Ricochet flew in with a handspring, but Takeshita countered him into a blue thunder bomb for a 2 count. Takeshita wound up waffled by both Ospreay and Ricochet with forearms before slowly getting up and laying out both men with the world-class forearm. Takeshita buckled, but he kept rising, and he destroyed both men with 2 loud forearms again. Ospreay tried a thrust kick, but caught Ricochet with a wall rock enziguri and hit Takeshita, who avoided an Oscutter initially. He hits a lariat on Ospreay, who lands on his feet, flipping through, and then hits an Oscutter, only for Ricochet to fly in with a 450. Ospreay kicks out at 2.99. At the same time, Takeshita, who's not even pinned, kicked out. That got fight forever chance at this point of the matchup. Ricochet and Ospreay are fighting in the corner until Takeshita gets Ricochet in a doomsday device. Ospreay comes in, hits a springboard lariat, but Ricochet lands on his feet. He hits a half and half suplex, where then Ospreay hits a German suplex. Ospreay then hits a poison Rana on Ricochet, who responds with a poison Rana on Ospreay. They're both stumbling, selling the moves, and Takeshita comes from behind and hits a double German suplex on both men. That was a gnarly, amazing viral spot that everybody's talking about, good, bad, and indifferent about it. I loved it, and I, at this point, was like, this match is just fucking unreal. You get Takeshita, he flies over the top rope with a big tope con hilo to the outside. You get Takeshita brought Ricochet into the corner. Ospreay cut him off and tries to hit a top rope Hurricane Rana onto Ricochet. I think that Takeshita was going to try to catch him into a powerbomb, but Ricochet just flies through into a cover that Ospreay has to break up. Ospreay wanted a hidden blade, but he ate a Ricochet corkscrew kick. As he went up top for a huge shooting star press, Takeshita ran in with the power driver knee, stacking both men on top of each other in the same fashion as their match on the 5-year anniversary, but both men kick out. Takeshita looks at the freaking table. He finally fights off Ricochet and hits a ridiculous-looking fucking bastard driver off the apron through the table to a huge pop. Holy shit chant from the Washington crowd. Takeshita fires up. He high-fives Callis. He gets back inside, but Ospreay meets him with a hidden blade, but Takeshita kicks out at 1. Ospreay hits another hidden blade, but then Callis comes in. He pulls the referee out of the ring. He pulls out a screwdriver, and he goes to hit Ospreay. Ospreay blocks it. He teased that he's going for the Tiger Driver. When a man in a hoodie comes in, he picks up the screwdriver, hits Ospreay in the back of the head with the screwdriver. The commentary, Nigel McGuinness, like, that's Kyle Fletcher. And Kyle Fletcher takes off his hoodie to expose that is him. Yes, he has turned on Will Ospreay, his best friend, and he has sided with the Don Callis family. Ospreay stares at him in shock. He then looks over at Callis, who just shrugs like, you asked for this. And then Takeshita hit the power drive knee. The referee is brought in. 1, 2, 3. Konosuke Takeshita finally wins singles gold in All Elite Wrestling. And he is your new AEW International Champion in an unbelievable, phenomenal 3-way match. That is by far, in my opinion, the best 3-way match in AEW history. Post-match, you get Ospreay. He crawls to Fletcher. Fletcher picks him up, hits the Tiger Driver onto Ospreay. Callis told Fletcher that he's so proud of him. Takeshita walked to the back with Callis, who says that he's the best in the world now. There's no one like him. What a match. What an angle. Love Fletcher turning heel here. I didn't see it coming, despite me complaining about Fletcher being conflicted about it, but that kind of was the tell that he was conflicted between Ospreay and Callis after Callis admitted that he screwed over Ospreay, he betrayed Ospreay, but Fletcher was still conflicted on which side he was going to go to. It makes sense for him to turn heel and side with the Don Callis family and feud with Will Ospreay. Ospreay loses nothing here. Kyle Fletcher gets his biggest moment since coming to AEW, while at the same time, Konosuke Takeshita finally crowned in one of the best booking decisions from Tony Khan all year. You needed to put a title on Konosuke Takeshita after his run, his MVP run in New Japan Pro Wrestling in the G1 Climax. I absolutely love this match. I think it's one of the best matches of the year. 5 stars. Professor Kris, what did you think?
Yeah, this was my match of the night. I love this, and people still ask me why, or not ask me. I see people complaining why Ricochet went to AEW. This is why he went to AEW, because he wants to do matches like this, and he wants to do a bunch of matches like this. He doesn't care about titles or anything like that. I listened to his interview with Chris Jericho. This is what he wants to do, and this is where he wants to be. I thought the match was phenomenal. Takeshita, they had to put a belt on him eventually, man. They were just wasting time not putting a belt on him. So I'm glad they gave him a singles title. The Kyle Fletcher stuff I did see coming, but I don't think that's a bad thing. You know, I think sometimes when you telegraph something, it needs to move along the way the storyline moves it along. And I did see this coming, but it was still fun to watch when it happened. And Ospreay is going to get his revenge on him, and you know, probably he's got a faction to feud with now, and he's got like people to feud with in between the time he eventually fights for the AEW world title. So I thought this was a very great match. I thought the storytelling was great too. And I don't always give TK credit for that, but I'll give him credit for it in this particular feud.
Yeah, this was great storytelling and a great, like I said, this was a great booking decision of putting the title on Takeshita. Ospreay doesn't lose anything. He has another match of the year candidate. This is Ricochet. This might be the best Ricochet matchup since like his debut in WWE, the ladder match at TakeOver New Orleans. That was the last time that I had Ricochet in a near 5-star match, but this is a certified 5-star match. And I saw the question in the chat, was this match, I see Alexander said the match surpassed my favorite triple threat match, AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, and Christopher Daniels at Unbreakable 2005. It was very reminiscent of that matchup. It was like the 2024 version of that matchup, with Will being the AJ Styles. You had Takeshita, who's the Hoss, doing power moves like Samoa Joe, and you had Christopher Daniels in Ricochet being the bald guy in the matchup. But Ricochet, man, he looked great. Ospreay looked great. No one lost anything in this matchup, and there's more interesting stuff. Like, this is one of the matchups on the show, like we talked about during our All Out review, Kris, where this was one of the matchups where I was like, oh, I want to see the next chapter. I want to watch the next AEW show to see what happened next, see how Ospreay responds to being turned on by Kyle Fletcher. Hear Kyle Fletcher's explanation for this and see Konosuke Takeshita as the international champion, who he didn't beat Ricochet, so Ricochet might be still in line for that title as Ospreay kind of ventures off with Fletcher here.
Yeah,
Josh?
It's a good hook.
Absolutely agree. Josh, what did you think about the 3-way?
It was easy match of the night, in my opinion. All 3 guys delivered, in which, I mean, I did say it before. I think, what was it, a week or 2 ago, that I was like, I think this is probably going to be the best match of the night, because we've seen all 3 guys work. We've seen Ospreay versus Kosuke already, right? And then we've seen Ospreay versus Ricochet. So when you put all those 3 guys together, I mean, you that's what we got yesterday. And, you know, I think that in the preview, I mean, yesterday when we did our rapid fire, I picked Takeshita. I think, was it you and Chrissy that picked Will to retain?
Yeah.
Right. So even with that alone, I was like, yes, like not only the person that I picked, but I was like, I felt like it was the right moment. And I like the way that it happened, regardless of people don't like Kyle Fletcher or not. I don't give a fuck. I thought that was great. It does a lot for him. Yeah. So, I mean, regardless of what people want to think about the guy, and you know, him and Will having a feud, I think it'll be fine. There's a story there between them. You know, a lot of people probably have never watched New Japan, so they don't know the history that these 2 guys have. That's on them. So I mean, I look forward to it. Again, the heel turn does benefit Kyle, like, because that means he's going to be used more. So it benefits him. The match itself doesn't hurt Will. I know a lot of people were complaining about that too, which I'm just like, it don't hurt Will Ospreay at all. Like, the man has like a 90% winning percentage already in AEW, like, so it doesn't really matter. And he already had the belt twice. Like, at this point, give it to the guy who needs it. And Takeshita needed it, and maybe it's a good thing that Jimmy Jacobs is not there, because he didn't want him to win the title the first time back at Forbidden Door. So, hey, I guess things are looking up.
Hey, we're already improving in the post Jimmy Jacobs era, and it puts over Takeshita, considering the fact that the only two other guys to pin Ospreay since signing with AEW was Swerve Strickland and MJF, two former AEW World Champions, and now Takeshita is the third guy to get the win over Ospreay in AEW. So, works on a number of different levels for sure. So, man, go out of your way. If you didn't watch this matchup, go out of your way. I would say that, like I said, I think it's like the 2024 version of Unbreakable 2005, but I think that's like 1A, 1B as the greatest triple threats I've ever seen. Like, this was up there. Like, this had unbelievable action throughout, had you on the edge of your seat the entire way,
Right.
and then the shocking finish as well. Just added everything, every element, like Kris said. The storytelling was on par with the in-ring action.
Yeah, and I usually don't like triple threat matches that much. I usually think the finality needs to be a singles match, but I think the way they laid out this match, it really does work. And if you didn't see it, I do think you should go out of your way to watch it.
Yeah, for sure. Agree with you there. Backstage, we get. I thought this was a weird placement for this feud, for this segment, and I heard a lot of people saying that this probably should have been a Dynamite segment. But I think that it foreshadowed what would happen at the end of the night. But you had Renee Paquette backstage with Orange Cassidy and Jerry Lynn, who told Cassidy that he's never seen anyone like him in his 40 years in the wrestling business. Lynn said that he knows Orange has been going through some stuff, but with all the chaos going on in AEW, if Cassidy tried, he could be the man. Hook walked in and told Cassidy to listen to Jerry. He's already the man. I think that this was foreshadowing for what we saw, later in the night, where it really seemed like AEW is trying to position Orange Cassidy as like one of the new top baby faces once again in AEW. To a lot of people, including myself, I've been saying this since All Out 2023. So they're about 16 months late, but better late than never, I guess. Kris?
Yeah, I thought they had a lot of stuff like this on this show where I feel like we're getting the next in line, the next up to the plate. And I did like this segment. Segments like this on a pay-per-view are fine if they're not messing up the flow of the show. You need a breather in between like good matches. It was perfectly fine. I liked it.
I agree with you. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. I think that it places Orange Cassidy where he should be. Josh, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think when it comes to the segments, I was fine with it being on the pay-per-view. I think they need a little bit more of that on some of the pay-per-views sometimes. Because usually sometimes with AEW, we do get like a lot of matches and, usually like a lot of the blow-offs feuds like we usually get on the pay-per-views. So I thought this was like a different approach. I didn't mind it too much. And if this is kind of like trying to reheat OC again, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I agree with you there. If you're gonna, you gotta follow through though. They can't keep doing the false stop and pump faking with OC, man. They gotta really follow through if this is gonna be a push for him in the direction of being one of the top baby faces in the promotion. That I did not like the Punk fake that we got after All Out last year. So I'm hoping they follow through this time. All right, next up was one of the segments that I was looking forward to the most on this show, as Swerve Strickland makes his return to AEW here in his home state of Washington. Swerve comes out to a big ovation from the Tacoma crowd here in the Tacoma Dome. You get Prince Nana introducing him, trying to put over his coffee before he introduced him, though. Strickland said that it feels weird being out there without the AEW World Championship around his waist, but he's happy to be home again. Strickland said that his medical update is he still feels wonky and has tingling in his fingers, as everything he said about Bryan Danielson is coming back to him now, as karma is a real thing. But he has been medically cleared, which gets a good pop from the crowd. Swerve wanted to address his hometown about the past, present, and future, but he is quickly interrupted before he can elaborate by MVP. MVP comes on stage with Shelton Benjamin, and he says it's his future that he wants to discuss, as maybe his minion didn't give him MVP's card, as he's been trying to hit him up. Strickland must be thinking about the decisions regarding his future. MVP believed in Swerve before he believed in himself. The crowd chanted Swerve's house, and MVP said they're right, but Strickland's career is floundering a little bit. Thankfully, MVP is good at taking former champions and reminding them why they are great. So let's talk business. Strickland said, first off, hello. Then he brings up that they faced each other in Defy back in 2017, where he beat MVP that night. Swerve saw MVP take stars and make them superstars, like Shelton Benjamin, who has been a huge inspiration as he paved the way for Swerve and Black wrestlers to do what they do. And Strickland then turns to Nana and said, MVP wasn't wrong in that the past few months haven't treated him that right. Since being with Nana, Swerve lost his AEW World Championship at All In. He lost to Hangman Adam Page at All Out. And his childhood home was burnt down to the ground. On the other hand, he wouldn't have all those things he's had if it wasn't for Nana. That got some cheers from the crowd. He says the potential, though, with Strickland and MVP, he says they could make history. With MVP and Benjamin backing him up, he could be even more dangerous than he was before. Strickland brought up his wages go up week in, week out. And then he brings up the fact that Nana is still selling weed to high school kids in hotel parking lots. He said the biggest thing about Nana is he is family. And Strickland doesn't turn his back on family for anybody. MVP can take his business cards and shove them up his ass because they're here in Swerve's house. Shelton Benjamin gets in Swerve's face, and he says that he misread the situation. As they weren't asking, they were demanding. You're either with us or against us. Things got scrappy between the two men. They started shoving one another when referees, officials, and Christopher Daniels hit the ring to try to separate everyone. A referee got hit by Shelton, but we never saw it on camera, as Shelton was convinced by MVP to retreat, but turned back to Strickland and said, time is ticking. Strickland and Nana hugged to close this segment. Now, I saw a lot of people said this could have been on Dynamite, but
No.
I think that with the Tacoma crowd, they wanted to see Swerve. And I know there was a lot of people that expected Bobby Lashley to debut here, and I was one of them that did. But I can also say that I was wrong. When you have MJF and Adam Cole returning just before this, you do what you did in the close of the show with Bryan Danielson. Bobby Lashley's debut could have been like the fourth most important thing on this show. So it was best to lay off of that for at least for an episode of Dynamite, and maybe even this week on Dynamite. But whenever Swerve and Shelton go at it, I think that's going to be the place where we get Bobby Lashley debuting, and it puts some of the focus and spotlight on Shelton Benjamin, who's had more of a low-key introduction to AEW since coming on board. Professor Kris, what did you think about the segment and the lack of no Bobby Lashley debut here?
Well, okay, so let's break this all down. I love this segment. I thought that, again, you need these kind of breather segments on the show. So that's the biggest problem with these AEW pay-per-views is you get wrestling, and you get no time to breathe. So this segment right here was the perfect segment. You weren't going to get Swerve wrestling on this show, but those people in Washington wanted to see Swerve, and they got Swerve, and they got him in a significant segment. As far as Lashley not debuting, if I would have paid money to go to this pay-per-view, one of my draws in going to the pay-per-view would be the possibility of seeing Lashley. So I understand it from that level, but I also understand that AEW rating on Tuesday was as fucking atrocious as it gets. And you need hooks. They need hooks to get people to watch television. They really, really do. Even like it was a Tuesday show, so you could give them an excuse, but doing that low, and NXT is not better than AEW. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. So it shouldn't be, even though it's on the CW, it shouldn't be trouncing AEW like that in the ratings. So they do need hooks. I mean, I hope people understand that. And Lashley not debuting is okay. I actually liked Shelton. I think Shelton Benjamin has always gotten a bum rap. I still will call bullshit on the fact that out of that whole class of Lesnar, who was it? Lesnar, Orton, Batista, Cena, and Shelton Benjamin. That's the people touted from that class. He didn't have as stellar of a career. I still think it's bullshit. I think he's fine on the mic if he's saying the right things, and last night on the pay-per-view he was saying the right things. You know, he's like, hey, like, you know, being like kind of a heavy. You just debuted Shelton Benjamin and MVP. They need to feel special for a little while, and then until your big heavy Lashley comes in, and it's gonna be amazing when he comes in. And the stuff with Nana, Nana sent me some of the coffee and some of his tea, by the way. So I'm not a coffee drinker. I told him my wife doesn't love me in the morning until she has her coffee, but she likes his coffee. The tea was very good. I'm a person that needs calm. Any like super thing who's super caffeinated just gives me the jitters and fucks me up. Yeah. But yeah, awesome segment, man. I thought for a pay-per-view talking segment, I was happy with it, and I understand the fans, but I mean, come on, man. This is, like I said, one of the biggest criticisms of AEW is the way they just go back to back to back to back with wrestling matches, and you don't get any time to breathe. That this is a breathing segment. Cool with it. Sorry for the rant.
I agree with you. No, I definitely agree with you, because like this showed something that AEW doesn't always have: patience. This showed patience, and they usually throw all this stuff onto one show, and it probably would have been a misstep to have Bobby Lashley come out here, like I said, because it wouldn't have been the number one thing out of the show.
Right. I think a show that Lashley debuts on, that needs to be the most memorable thing from that show.
Yeah. Agreed. Josh, what did you think about this segment here?
I like the segment. I like what what both sides were saying. You know, I thought it was pretty entertaining overall. It was funny when Swerve brought that up about the high school, still selling weed to high school kids, because like I know about the real stories to that, and it was true because he used to do that a lot. So like we know about it. Me and SP, we know about it.
Chris Nana used to sell weed.
He was slanging that.
Yep.
He was slanging weed at Ring of Honor. He was slanging weed at House of Glory, because House of Glory he was there for a while too. But he's like, yo, when I hear shit like that, I was like, yo, they ain't lying, because I know about it. So that's what makes it mad funny. But I thought the overall segments were great. You know, it gives a clear direction of where this is going, right? Like we kind of knew like this was going to be a feud, but this was also confirmation. Like, all right, like we're definitely getting we're definitely getting a feud between Swerve and the Hurt Syndicate, right? And then besides that, I mean, like I thought Sheldon was fine. Sheldon held his own. And I do agree with Sheldon when it comes to Sheldon Benjamin, right? I've never discredited his work in the ring. I think he's a phenomenal athlete. It was always the other things that I think that kind of handicapped what he could do. Like when it comes to like what, you know, the old man was looking at, right? Somebody with charisma, somebody who could really talk very well. And, you know, you could be a great talker, but I think the difference is that you could be a great talker, and then depending on what you say or what lines you're given, it could come off kind of flat, right? Because we've seen situations where Wardlow, he could be smooth, like he could be a great talker, and there's times where we've seen like, oh shit, this guy could talk, but then when they give him certain things to say, it just falls really flat, right? You know what I mean? So I think that's like that's the difference between like someone like with Sheldon, but then also he has the experience now. We were talking about a guy that's been in the business for 20 years now. So I think now he knows probably like what to do, what to say. And I felt like yesterday, like he looked good when it came to that. But then also like he doesn't seem like he's second fiddle. That's what I like about it, right? Because when we saw like the Hurt Business, right? We enjoyed the Hurt Business for what it was, but then he was stuck in a tag team with Alexander, right? With this guy, which is fine. But now we're kind of starting to see like now like he feels important, like he feels like an important member of what they're trying to build. I like stuff like that. And then also, you know, I did expect Lashley to come out yesterday, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I was a little bummed out. I was like, damn, I really wanted to see Lashley. But I did like the teaser of it, like you know, MVP show, like all right, like all right, you're gonna see what's coming, and I like that aspect of it. Like, you know, we're eventually are gonna get Lashley. It's just a matter of when. It doesn't even need to be this week, you know, like it doesn't need to be this Wednesday. If it is, I'll be fine, depending on how they do it and how they go about it. You know, but it'll be a good thing to see him. Because I do, when it comes to talent, when it comes to wrestlers, I do hold Lashley to a high regard when it comes to his work and his work ethic and what he brings to the table. And I do feel like he would benefit AEW, like what not only the stable itself, but somebody like Lashley. Being the size that he is, being a great worker, and being, you know, even at 48 years old, there's not many guys who could do what he does.
Yeah.
So
I can't do what he does, you know.
No, it's true. Like, so
I can't look like him at 48, and I ain't gonna do what he does at 48.
He looks better at 38 than he did like at fucking 35. Like that's insane to me. You know, like he looks like he's getting like in better shape. As he gets older, it seems like he gets in better shape. But I do think that these guys are going to do great things. I think the fact that it seems like whatever direction they want to go and MVP's input, it seems like they're going to take his input very seriously. And it seems like he's enjoying it so far, because even when you see like his Twitter, he's responding to fans. It seems like not only him and AEW on the same page, but it seems like they're getting him so much leeway that he probably always wanted. So I think this is going to be a great feud. Like, title doesn't need to be involved in nothing. I think this is going to be a great feud going forward.
What's today's date? Because I want to mark this because I'm about to say something that people are gonna probably take umbrage with. I think
October
the Hurt.
13th.
Okay, October 13th. I think it's my sister's birthday tomorrow, so shame on me for forgetting. But I think this Hurt Syndicate and AEW is going to make AEW mainstream. I really, really do. I think if this is done right, this is going to be the angle that puts the company over the top. WWE gave Shelton Benjamin a fucking mammy in that company. It's only up from here, man. Once they did that, I saw the writing on the wall for the rest of that guy's career in that company. The Hurt Business, the team of MVP, Lashley, you can even throw Shelton Benjamin. They've been successful in multiple companies, TNA, WWE, now AEW, New Japan, if you count the combination of MVP and Shelton Benjamin. This is an act that always works. And if it's done right, this could have worked in WWE way better than it did. But they had a lot of haters in there that didn't want to see it do what it could do. I think in AEW, it's going to do what it's going to do.
I think that it has a chance to be different, to be executed in a different way than it was in WWE.
Yeah, and also I think in WWE, I think what it was that they put a stable together that they really didn't know what direction it was going to go, and then once they saw like, oh shit, fans love it, they just did it as like a money. They kind of did like as a money maker when it comes to merch, the shirts and all that stuff. So I don't think that the company themselves were very serious about where these guys could go. I just think that they caught something that was in a lightning in the bottle situation, and they basically ran with it. Right? Even though Lashley did become a champion from that, a world champion, right? Mm-hmm. Those kind of things happen. Yeah, like those things kind of happen, right? He became a 2-time champion within that time frame, but that shit could have gone further than it did. And then even the way that it ended, and then when they try to get back together or in talks, it just never transpired.
Right. And the scuttle that I was hearing a lot of is why aren't they feuding with the bloodline? Like people thought that they were on the trajectory to be feuding with each other, those teams. Lashley and Roman had victories over each other, right? So they could have did a rubber match with them, and it could have been a big thing. But for whatever reason, and Triple H is a fucking hater, so I mean, he wasn't going to give Lashley the due that he wanted to give him for whatever.
I think on paper, I think you're onto something, because I think on paper it does sound like maybe something could have happened, right? On paper it sounds good, but then knowing how WWE is, it just would have been so one-sided, in my opinion, that it would have just been like, damn, we were probably better off just not getting this.
Yeah, probably.
And again, that's, I don't know, what, if that was to ever happen, I don't know if that was a thing or not. But we've seen it with Lashley, where Lashley got a victory over Roman. He got a clean victory over Roman, babyface versus babyface. Then all of a sudden they had a second match, and they're like, oh, the winner of this match gets a world title match. I'm like, why didn't Lashley just get the world title match to begin with when he won the first match, and he won it clean, and he won it in a good fashion of it, So that's why I think, to me, that's why I'm like, yeah, probably wouldn't have even gone well. But I do see what you mean by that. They could have done great things with it, right? Because even after that underground segment, I think that's where the Hurt Business got over, because they just fucked everybody up. And I was like, all right, this is what we wanted to see. This is what we were waiting for, and we finally got it. And then again, once it reaches, I don't even think it had its peak. And I think that's why for me it was kind of damn, this is how they're gonna end it. That's kind of trash. So again, I think when it comes down to it, I think in AEW, I think Tony Khan is gonna, he's gonna give a lot of pull to MVP, and I think whatever direction they go, he's gonna have a big say in it. And like I've said before with MVP, right? I've never been big on his wrestling, but I think as a creative mind and as like a wrestling mind, he's one of the best. And I've learned that over the years with MVP. Like, you really sit there and you listen to him speak, and when people, I've seen him act. People ask him for it. Like, he's always honest. He's always very open, and somebody like that, I'm like, yo, this man really knows his stuff, right? Because you could be in the business, you could be in business 15, 20 years. It doesn't mean you know everything, or it doesn't mean that you're good at it, right? It just means somebody give you an opportunity for whatever reason, because you probably kissed a lot of ass or whatever reason. But he's never been that kind of person. Like, he doesn't take shit for nobody. And you saw when it came to Triple H, he was not backing off. Like, he was not backing off of how he felt about him and the direction they went, and he made it very clear, hey, I don't think Triple H is racist. He made that very clear, but he did say, like, yeah, like, I just don't think he saw, like, he doesn't look at us as like top people. He doesn't look at us as people who could benefit the company. And, when it comes to AEW, they have something right there in front of them. They have something special, and I really hope they don't drop it.
And yeah, worth mentioning, I got here in the chat, Frantic World says Leo Rush re-signed, not resigned, re-signed with AEW, and MVP and Shelton Benjamin had a little back and forth with him. That's up on AEW's social media platform. So maybe we get a Shelton versus Leo before we get Shelton versus Swerve. I wouldn't mind if that was a matchup that they put on Dynamite this week and builds to the Shelton and Swerve matchup. And I said I was very critical of AEW Dynamite Title Tuesday, and I agree with Professor Kris that rating was atrocious. But it even looks worse because I didn't feel like AEW really tried. Now that
they did.
I did see in the news what Safet saying here in the chat that AEW and NXT will go head to head on November 6th, where NXT is moving off Tuesdays and going to be on Wednesdays. You gotta actually book the show like you're counter programming and having the Shelton Benjamin Swerve Strickland match there, and then maybe the introduction of Bobby Lashley on that show. That makes more sense to me.
Yeah. That TV is important, man. Like, people don't understand. Back in the day, if you did something on free TV, I understand the criticism for it, but TV has never been more important, especially with these rights deals, and you're getting paid from these networks. You gotta come up, and doing that shit they did on Tuesday was just it was sleeping at the wheel, man. Don't do that kind of shit. Do better ratings. Don't be losing to NXT like that. And I'm not saying NXT is a garbage show like I used to say back in the day, but you shouldn't be losing to NXT. You just shouldn't be.
Not by a 500,000. I expected them to lose to NXT, but not by a 500,000.
Right, yeah, not by that much.
Yeah, then also I think what they needed to make clear was that, like, it was gonna be on Tuesday, because I didn't see a lot of that.
I forgot about it. I didn't even know.
And then I think a lot of people, because even in the chat, people were asking. Like, we had to remind one of our friends about it, and he had zero clue about it. But then also I think maybe starting at 9:00, I think that did probably hurt them as well, because it was a different time.
They had everything working against them. They were on a different night at a different time, and they didn't put in the effort to counter program.
Yeah, and I think they weren't really trying when it came to that. I don't know, when it comes to that, I could see why, because they did have the pay-per-view did coming up. So if you were trying to like counter program to something that is like, you have a big pay-per-view coming up, in a sense I get it, but at the same time, when you see a rating like that, it only benefits the grifters and the drones who hobble over it. Like, they even did the comparison, like, NXT outdrew like all their shows coming up, and I'm like, we had Collision was on the same time as Bad Blood, right? you know, and then we had Dynamite this past week was on a different night. And a different time slot, right? But people would look at it as, oh, those are excuses. I'm like, no, those are actual facts. And if when it comes to that, you know, there aren't a different, you know, NXT, you know, benefit, you know, they need to benefit from being on CW. I think that's the difference too, right? Because if NXT did like a small rating like that, or even like 600K, that would be a problem for a channel. It's like, oh shit, we just got you guys, and this is what you gave us. Because realistically, their expectations is 1 million. They're thinking about getting 1 million, and they haven't gotten that either. But on its NXT standpoint, it's a good number, right? But on a network standpoint,
it's a great number.
Yeah,
to get
it's a
back-to-back weeks. I did not expect them to get it back-to-back weeks around the same way.
Yeah, you know, and then, you know, we had somebody in the chat from us, you know, they try to brag about it and probably just didn't go their way because nobody really responded to him. And when I said, oh yeah, you're really bad at this, he just stopped. He gave up. He waved the white flag himself. So, but you know, yeah, when it comes to all that stuff, I mean, like, I do agree. If it's November 6th, I do believe they need to do something when it comes to that, because that's their night. So if NXT is moving, I'm like, that's their night. You got to make a statement when it comes to that.
Yeah. Next up, you had Hologram going one-on-one with the Beast Mortos. Best 2 out of 3 falls matchup. The crowd wasn't into this early on, but I felt like they got into it as the match went on. You had Mortos, who used the speed early on with a springboard arm drag, but Hologram met him with a wild head scissors and then a tilt-a-whirl arm drag until both traded quick pin attempts and they stalemated for a bit. Hologram flipped out of a back-flipping Mortos off his shoulders. He low-bridged Mortos outside as Hologram hit a full-speed tope con hilo that sent both men halfway up the entranceway. Mortos cut off a charge from Hologram back inside the ring with a reverse into a sling blade. He then snapped off a crucifix slam before a pop-up Samoan drop got a 2 count. You get Mortos tried for the avalanche press slam, but Hologram countered into a head scissors, a top rope crucifix bomb, and then a cradle that gave him the first fall. Mortos came back and launched Hologram clear out of the ring, where he followed up with a twisting tornillo. Mortos pressed a Hologram over his head and tossed him onto the ramp on the outside. Headbutt fired off. He then hit him he tried to charge with a spear, but he missed the second, allowing Hologram to hit a top rope moonsault. But then Mortos hits a reverse torture rack backbreaker into a power bomb on the knee and a discus lariat to win the second fall. Tony Schiavone noted that this was only the first time Hologram has been officially pinned in AEW, but this is 2 out of 3 falls, so they were just at 1-1. We get an immediate discus lariat again from Mortos, which only got a 2 this time. Hologram came back, spun out a huge head scissors off the top rope. He used his speed to evade Mortos, but Mortos eventually hits his big press slam off the top rope. We get a torture rack bomb again, a power bomb, and a third discus lariat from Mortos. Only gets a near fall this time. Mortos keeps holding his ribs, favoring it, and commentary pointed it out that he may have hurt himself. Hologram hits a big diving crucifix bomb once again. He tries for the first cradle that he won in the first fall, but Mortos was able to kick out. But Hologram manages to lift up Mortos into the portal bomb for the 1-2-3 to win this best out of 2 out of 3 falls matchup. Very good matchup here. These two guys know how to work so well with each other, and this was a great kind of Lucha Libre showcase, especially considering AEW just finished up the new deal with Fox Sports Mexico. We even got the Spanish commentary before the match started. So a good match, a very good matchup that got the crowd into it towards the final fall here. I gave it 3 3/4 stars. Kris, what did you think?
Yeah, great match. The right guy won. Hologram. I think he could be good big for AEW if AEW knew how to push luchadors. But it was a great match. I liked it.
What did you think, Josh?
The match was really it was fun. I really liked the match. I knew both guys were delivered too. We already seen it before. So 2 out of 3 falls. It gave like a different stipulation for that. But yeah, it's a good showcase for Hologram being on the pay-per-view. Because we're so used to seeing him on Collision, or some people probably don't watch Collision, and this was the first time watching him last night on the bigger, more people there, and when it comes to the pay-per-view buys. So I thought both guys delivered.
Yeah, we got Safety who says Hologram versus the Beast Mortos is like a classic 1993 Power Rangers type match. Yes, Hologram's whole mask does make him look like a Power Ranger, and Beast Mortos does look like one of Rita's villains of the week. So I'll give you that. We also got MCats who says, I think that Roosh will give Mortos his first loss. I can see that with the new rivalry with LFI and Hologram. That would be a good thing to do. We got MCats who says Hologram, Commander, and Bandito would be an awesome trios team. I wouldn't mind that at all. And we also got I Make Beats who said he's been the best thing on Collision recently. Yeah, since they were in Arlington and he debuted, he's been a highlight every single week on Collision, or a reason to watch Collision most of the time. But next up was a match that I was looking forward to, fellas. Darby Allin going one-on-one with Brody King. And if I told you Darby Allin was versing Brody King, this is the match that you would probably think about in your mind. Before the match started, we see footage of Darby Allin skateboarding and traveling through the streets of Tacoma while holding on to the back of a bus while on his skateboard. He rides to the Tacoma Dome with punk rock music playing in the background. He makes his entrance to a huge pop in his home state of Washington. Early on in the matchup, King no-sells some strikes before hip-tossing Darby out of the ring. King caught Darby, and he slams him into the barricade. He chops him at another point. He tosses him back inside. Darby tries a plancha to the outside, but King slams him onto the barricade. He then tries to launch him towards the steel steps. Darby flips over and tries to dive off of the steel steps, which Brody catches him with a big forearm in midair. He then puts the steel steps on top of Darby and walks up it and stands on the top. And I'm like, oh my God, Darby, why do you want to kill yourself? Why? I don't understand this, sir. I just don't. Mm-hmm. Back in the ring, King puts him in the Tree of War, and he goes for the King Cannonball, but Darby moves out of the way. He then hits his tope suicida, launching his whole body at Brody. He hits a second one where Brody finally gets off his feet. Allin follows up with a big coffin drop off the top rope onto Brody. He brings him back inside for a near fall. Darby tries to sink in the rear naked choke that Brody did on him in the first Royal Rampage back in 2022. But King brings him onto the apron. He slams him back and shoulder first onto the apron, breaking the choke. He then tosses Darby like a sack of potatoes. He yokes him up like the Royal Rampage and drops Darby onto the floor. Back inside, he hits a standard release German suplex. With Darby on the apron, he then grabs him up and launches a second rope avalanche German suplex. He then brings him to the other side and hits a second avalanche German suplex for a close near fall. Both men landed hard on the last two suplexes, so King is slow to follow up. He looked at the steps set up on the outside. He wanted a big superplex off the top rope onto the steel steps, but Darby is able to fight him off. He hits some big strikes and then pushes King off the top rope onto the steel steps, hard onto his back. He then follows up with a huge coffin drop onto Brody on top of the steel steps. Brody takes the full 9 count to finally get back into the ring, but Darby catches him with the coffin drop to the bad back. 1, 2, 3. Darby Allin wins this one in a hell of a banger of a matchup. He killed Darby for like 90% of this, but Darby is so resourceful, and the coffin drop is his kill shot that he was able to get the win with two of them. Brody and Darby showing respect to one another after the matchup. I thought this was a great matchup here. I gave it 4 stars. Darby and Brody just have great chemistry with one another, and they've had nothing short of like very good matches throughout their matches in AEW. And this is the first time that Darby Allin has gotten a pinfall victory against Brody King out of 8 matches that they've had with each other in AEW and on the independent scene. Josh, what did you think about Darby and Brody here?
It was a great match. Both guys always deliver. And I'm kind of glad, Darby won. I think he really needed it. Not only for himself, but I think even the feud between him and Brody King, because Brody King has always had like the upper hand on him. So it was nice to see that. And then all the, adversity he had to deal with in the match, getting his ass beat and then still winning. I thought both guys delivered.
Yeah, I like the show of respect as well, showing that Brody respects Darby following the matchup. Kris, what did you think?
Yeah, I thought the right guy won. I think Brody is in the company he belongs in, but that's neither here nor there. I think they positioned Orange Cassidy and Darby very well on this show. I think Darby's another guy who I feel like is next in line. And this is not something I always get from AEW shows. I'm always wondering who is their priority, and Darby feels like a priority now for me.
I would say he's definitely been a priority, especially like post Sting. They've really put a focus on him as
they've done a good job.
One of the faces of the company, one of the top stars. And I think that the finish of the show sets him up as the Sting to the BCC's NWO. That's what it really felt like with the close.
Mm-hmm.
Frantic World saying that this was fun to watch. We also got Power Driver Finisher. He says, this is the embodiment of surviving the match. I agree. I definitely agree there. Next up, you had the Young Bucks defending the AEW World Tag Team Championships against Private Party, Zay, and Quinn. I absolutely popped for the intro to this show, to this matchup, as you had a pre-taped intro for Private Party that had their trainer, Amazing Red, giving them advice, telling them that they've dropped the ball too many times. Red says they need to stop playing games. It's no longer time for shots and partying. Expect the unexpected. They have to get serious and prove they're the best tag team in AEW. Red fires them up. We get the new music for Private Party for their entrance. And we also got to see a very disgruntled Stokely Hathaway, who's not happy with them turning down his offer to be their manager. Matthew Jackson gets on the mic before the matchup. He says to cut that awful music off, and he says they've seen the footage plenty of times of them losing to Private Party and what they have done since. They will be nothing more than a mid-card act and failures. As Zay and Quinn slap the Young Bucks in the face, they bail out of the ring and look like they're going to leave when they wipe out Private Party when they chase after them with super kicks. They then bring them on the top of the stage. They look for the TK driver, but they're able to fight back. You get Zay fighting back, and then Quinn climbs up the entrance stage and hits a big somersault dive onto all 3 men. The match officially begins back in the ring. Nicholas was brought in the ring. He gets hit with a crossbody for a 2 count. Nicholas fought back with a springboard facebuster on Zay, but Quinn was able to dodge a moonsault and hits a double hurricane rod on the Bucks as Zay flew out of the ring with a big dive. We get combo offense that got near falls. Matthew made a blind tag as the Bucks hit the assisted slice spread and super kicks on Zay and Quinn. The Bucks slow the pace down, keeping Quinn isolated until a Pele kick creates some distance. He gets the hot tag to Zay, who comes running wild with a pop-up drop kick. He hits an Isai moonsault onto Nicholas and follows up with a springboard spinning DDT onto Matthew. Zay tries to another Hurricane Rana, but Matthew hits a buckle bomb, and Nicholas hits a double stomp into a power bomb attempt, but he's able to reverse that into a Hurricane Rana to Zay. Wild springboard bounce back X Factor by Zay gets a near fall. I was like, man, this is the best I've seen Zay in a matchup. They do the silly string, which is countered, but Nicholas hits a twisting dive off the top rope to the floor. They try for the TK driver on the floor, but they fought off into a poison Rana on Matthew, but Nicholas flew over the barricade with a destroyer. Quinn launches off of the barricade with a 450 splash onto Nicholas. All four men dove in at the same time to break the count. We get the TK driver cut off by Quinn as Zay gets the roll up like the first time they got the win, but they only get a 2 count. We get a blockbuster by Quinn on Matthew. We get a springboard cutter by Nicholas on Zay at one point for a near fall. We get they do the Hardy sequence and get a near fall. They try for more bang for your buck, but Quinn wiggles out into a gin and juice for a very close near fall. Zay and Quinn hit the super kick party. They go for the bang for your buck, but Matthew's able to break up the cover. They finally hit the EVP trigger on Zay, but Zay kicks out at 2. The crowd was really into this matchup at this point. We even get I think it's the first time I ever heard a private party chant. Zay dodges a second EVP trigger. He nearly gets the win with the cradle. Zay fires up, but Matthew flips him up into the TK driver out of nowhere. 1, 2, 3. The Young Bucks retain the AEW World Tag Team Championships. They're all happy after the match, while Zay is incredibly dejected. The crowd give them the polite applause for their efforts, and I thought this was Private Party's best match of their AEW run. This was their best match of their run. It continues a really great stretch for the Young Bucks, who a lot of people were kind of signing them off, saying that they're scrubs now, that they're not as good as they once were. But they went out here, they really were like the kind of prototypical heel champions, where they bumped around, they made the challengers look as good as possible. They looked strong in defeat, but they got the win in the end. And I know a lot of people were like, it was the wrong call, that they should have went for the pivot on Private Party winning. But if you listen to the crowd at the beginning of the matchup, they did not believe in Private Party winning this one. They were very quiet for the early going. They were doing a whole bunch of spots that the crowd usually would be into if it was a hot enough crowd, but this is later into the show and they weren't. But by the end of the matchup, they did believe in Private Party. They come up short because the bigger win is for when they get a rematch. I would say do the rematch immediately at like Full Gear, and that's where Private Party should get the win early on in the card when the crowd can really be into it from the opening bell. But it was too quick of a build to this matchup for it to feel like a very earned title win. I think now that they come up short here on a rematch, they should be the team that beats the Young Bucks for the tag team titles. But I love this match. I might be in the minority. I give it 4.25 stars. What did you think, Kris?
Yeah, man. I like to quote the Bucks. I didn't think these two dorks were gonna win this match, man. I really didn't. I didn't expect the match to be as hot as it was. I've seen them have other good matches, the four of them, but I do think this match kind of sets Private Party in motion, and I do think you should pull the trigger as soon as you can. But this match was a pleasant surprise. It wasn't like a perfect match, but it was definitely good. Zay especially really like sold the loss. Very, very good storytelling, and hopefully Private Party can maintain this momentum, because they came into AEW hot, beating the Young Bucks, and then just kind of like faltered, stalled, whatever you want to call it. They just didn't do much for the last few years. I thought they were signed, sealed, and done. That's what I thought. But I mean, this match kind of shows that you could inject life in anything in wrestling if you put people in the right situation. So I was very pleasantly surprised by it.
Agreed there. Josh, what did you think?
It was a great matchup. I've seen these guys work before, even before AEW. I know the Bucks' last independent show was against Private Party, and that was at House of Glory. So I've seen them work numerous of times, and they always seem to deliver. It seems like the Bucks always bring out the best out of Private Party. Usually, Private Party usually works at their best, and I've seen it. At least over the years, like when they get put into like a big tag team match, it seems like that's where like they're at their best. And last night it was no different. But then also I know a lot of people were saying that, like, oh, they should have put the titles on them. It would have been cool to see, but I'm like, not yet. You know what I mean? Just because of the way that the feud went, because they did have Private Party, they had more Isaiah, they had him focus on the whole Moxley situation where Mox basically like smashed his hand with a damn hammer. So they were doing things on TV. So it's good to see that they're being used regularly now. And that's something that I've noticed. But this wasn't a acclaimed situation where Dad had to like pivot. They had to like call the audible weeks later after that because the Acclaim at that time got so over. I don't think it was the same situation. Like you said, the crowd, I want to say it was quiet, but at the end of the match, the crowd did get behind Private Party. And I think sometimes that's just as important because then there's some momentum build up. It's not something that's being thrown in. And, if they could come back around and, when Private Party finally wins those titles, I think beating the Bucks is the right team to do it. So, great match overall. The Young Bucks are the Young Bucks. I have no doubts in them. I just think that right now the Young Bucks are in the situation where the tag team division wasn't as strong. So it kind of feels like people are saying like, oh, they took a step back. Oh, they fall off. It's not so much that. It's just the tag team division itself hasn't really been real challengers to the tag team division that could really put them over. And, I think last night still proves that these guys could still work. They're still the best tag team, in my opinion. Regardless of what others want to say, I still think they're the top tier tag team anywhere, any business around the world. Doesn't matter to me. So, I mean, last night was the right call.
Agreed there. You then had the Ring of Honor World Championship up for grabs. Mark Briscoe defending against the former Ring of Honor World Champion, the Ocho, Chris Jericho. Jim Ross joined the commentary team at this point of the show for the final two matches. Briscoe wasted no time going right to work in the corner, beating the hell out of Chris Jericho. Excalibur reminds us it's a 20 count since it's under Ring of Honor rules. Jericho fired out of the corner with a code breaker, but Briscoe was able to kick out at one. Briscoe quickly fought back and set a chair in the ring and went to leap off of it, but Jericho tossed it aside. Bill went to check on Jericho as Briscoe hit a dive onto both men. Briscoe hit a diving blockbuster off the apron as Jericho took the referee, and Big Bill came in with a big boot. This led to Orange Cassidy appearing after Big Bill set up a table on the outside, and he hit multiple orange punches to send Big Bill to the back. We get a rolling DVD by Briscoe, who wanted the J Driller, but Jericho was able to escape and hit a suplex on the floor. Jericho took the camera and literally did nothing with it, just put the boost to Briscoe while filming himself. Briscoe came back with some redneck kung flu. He crotched Jericho in the corner, but Jericho was able to hit some 10 punches into a Hurricane Rana. Jericho opted to pose, which gave Briscoe time to fight back with some chops and forearms. Fisherman Buster spiked Jericho. He went to the J Driller once again, but Jericho was able to sweep the legs into the walls of Jericho. At this point, when Mark Briscoe was able to manage to get to the ropes, Jericho took the referee again, and then Brian Keefe ran out to get a cheap shot with Floyd the Bat, but Jericho was only able to get a 2. Rocky Romero battled with Brian Keefe to the backstage area as Jericho used that distraction to get a chair, but Briscoe hit a big boot on him. He went for the froggy bow, but Jericho was able to get up and hit the code breaker for a 2. Briscoe avoided the Judas effect. Jericho avoided a J Driller, but Briscoe ran right into the Judas effect. Jericho didn't make the cover and instead went for the J Driller himself, which he hit, but Mark Briscoe was able to kick out. He fired up at this point, started no-selling shots from Jericho. He hits the home run shot, big right hand. He then hits a rolling fireman's carry into the froggy bow off the top rope, but Briscoe did not go for the cover. He opts to go for the J Driller, and he hits it 1, 2, 3. Mark Briscoe picks up the victory and gets revenge on Chris Jericho for saying Jay Briscoe's name in vain. Surprisingly, this was the first good Jericho match on pay-per-view of 2024. And mainly it's because Mark Briscoe is so good. He told the story very well. They really very much established the story of Briscoe fighting with anger because he said Jay Briscoe's name in vain, and he uses Jay's finisher to get the win. It was a logical story that played out very nicely throughout the matchup, and it paid off in the end because Jericho lost. So I enjoyed this one a lot more than I thought I would. Chris?
Yeah, I thought it was fine. Jericho has been kind of annoying lately. I don't hate him as much as Stephanie Chase hates him. Man, she's not a fan of Jericho at all. I don't think I'm not like the fans who say please retire. I think Jericho serves a purpose. I think he's good for the wrestling business when he's not saying his stupid shit like the MAGA stuff. I think he's fine and serviceable. I just think this character, this learning tree character, is beyond annoying sometimes. The right guy won. Mark should have won this match. I saw some people online that were afraid Jericho was going to win. I was like, there's no way. But I was one of them.
But I was doing it intentionally to jinx him from winning.
Yeah. But I was I was like, when people were saying that he was going to win, I was like, no. Then I started thinking about it. I was like, oh my God, Jericho could win this match. And I was like, but I'm glad he didn't. The commentators really got on my nerves during this match. I must say this, the way they kept bringing up Jay, it did seem a little tasteless at a certain point. I guess that's what they were directed to do, so I don't blame them too much. But just for my own personal taste, I didn't think all that was necessary. But it is what it is.
Josh, what did you think about this one?
The match was better than I expected. I had Mark winning because I'm like, I don't want to believe that Jericho's winning, and turns out it ended up working out. And I felt like the last 5 minutes of the match, I felt like that was like the best part of the match. Like, the back and forth, and then Jericho hitting his move, and then him deciding to try to like one up Mark, so he did the J Driller himself, and then that pissed off Mark, and then that basically from that point it was already over because he was pissed. Once you get Mark to that point, it's over, and I thought that part was great, like seeing how pissed off he was, and then how it ended up working out on his end. Again, the match was way better than I expected. And I was a little surprised that this was like later on in the show. I thought this would be kind of like in the early parts of the show just to get out of the way, but it wasn't I mean, hindsight looking, it seemed like it was like, all right, like not a bad spot, I guess, right? Because it ended up working out. If the match would have been complete shit, then that's a different story. We would have been talking about the placement of it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, overall, I mean, you couldn't. They did, like they basically did more than what we asked for, and I appreciate it.
Yes, Mark Briscoe dragging Chris Jericho to a solid matchup. Then you finally had the main event, the match that this whole show was built on. Bryan Danielson defending the AEW World Championship. Hey, Prince. The AEW World Championship against Jon Moxley. Moxley had Marina Shafir in his corner. Bryan Danielson came out to a huge pop coming out to Final Countdown. Moxley cut off Bryan right as he posed for the crowd as they continued playing a Final Countdown. We get a mini pre-match brawl between the two with Moxley cutting off a charging Danielson. He tried to choke him with some match cords. Danielson turned the tables and choked Moxley instead. Marina Shafir jumped on his back, and Bryan said, I don't give a fuck if you're a woman. He slammed her down on her back. Moxley connected with the lariat, bringing a chair into the ring where Bryan hit him with the Psycho knee right as the music finally stopped. Tony Khan said, if I got one last time to play Final Countdown, I'm playing the full song. The match finally begun after Final Countdown played. Moxley avoided a backflip out of the corner and sank in the Bulldog choke as Bryan countered into a Saito suplex and connected with another Psycho knee for a 2 count. Moxley regrouped outside, but Danielson wouldn't allow it. Hits a somersault springboard dive to the outside, throwing his whole body at him. He tried for another dive, but he slipped onto the Spanish announce table where Danielson started firing off yes kicks on Moxley. Moxley eventually rakes his eyes and hits a painful-looking power driver on the bad neck of Bryan on the announce table. At this point, Moxley kind of took control. He even swipes at Nigel McGuinness, which made Nigel kind of turn on Moxley because we know Nigel loves to favor whoever Danielson's facing. But little by little, he started kind of cheering for Danielson more. The referee was distracted, which allowed Marina Shafir to get involved, hitting knees to Bryan's neck. Moxley was in full control. He started targeting the neck. He started biting at the neck. We got Marina Shafir continuously getting involved. Shafir exposes the concrete floor at ringside where Moxley stepped on Danielson's neck and head on the steel steps. Moxley gave last rites and was about to power drive of Danielson on the floor, but he manages a backdrop onto the concrete. Moxley rips away the tape on Danielson's neck and was raking at his back, giving Danielson a chance to bite his head after he reverses things. He hits yes kicks to Moxley as he's trapped in the tree of wool. He gets a spider suplex onto Moxley as he stays on the top rope. He then tries for a diving headbutt, but Moxley's able to avoid it and hits a curb stomp instead. Knee off of front chancery. Danielson rolled out into a desperation power driver onto Moxley. Both men slowly up. They started firing off forearms that get the yes and no's from the crowd. The crowd was very much into this one from the opening bell, and just the energy of the matchup, the feel just was amazing throughout. We get a head of steam by Danielson, who hits a flying clothesline. He fires off some more yes kicks. Danielson goes for the home run shot and kicks him upside the head. He looks like he's in the corner going for the Psycho knee when Marina Shafir holds on to his leg, which leads to Danielson walking into a cutter. Finally, the referee throws Marina Shafir from ringside. Danielson starts stomping down on Moxley's head before transitioning into a label lock, but Moxley's able to get to the ropes. Danielson wanted another dive, but Moxley caught him into a Death Rider right on the concrete floor. You get a big hush from the Tacoma Dome crowd, which was amazing to hear. Back inside, Moxley made the cover, but Danielson's able to kick out. He does hammer and anvil elbows, and then he tries for a rear naked choke and then transitions into a bulldog choke. But Danielson, with Moxley on his back, he climbs up the top rope. He fell back to break the hold. Danielson, again, he tries for the label lock as both men are countering submissions until Danielson hits a third Psycho knee, but only gets a 2 count. Danielson wants the home run shot, but he runs right into a King Kong lariat from Moxley. Moxley starts flipping off the crowd. He goes for the Death Rider, but Danielson kicks out at 1 to an explosion from the crowd. We had stomps to the head. You had Moxley talking trash to Dragon, telling him, "I didn't want to do it this way." As Danielson gets up and spits at Moxley, slapping him across the face. Moxley responds by connecting with a Gotch style power driver, delayed style. Then he locks in a rear naked choke. Danielson one more time tries to get up and tries to get to the rope, but he fades and falls back. He never quits, but Bryce Remsburg checks on him, and he's unresponsive. And they rings the bell, and you heard another hush from the Tacoma Dome crowd as Bryce Remsburg sold this amazingly. He grabs his head like, oh shit, what the fuck did I do? He calls for the bell, and it is official. Jon Moxley defeats Bryan Danielson to become a four-time AEW World Champion. This gives Danielson the out because he never quit, but Moxley is your new champion. Post-match, Claudio Castagnoli, Pac, and Marina Shafir all come down to the ring as Moxley hands Claudio the AEW World Championship. Claudio has a big duffel bag, and he just throws the AEW World title in the duffel bag. Moxley didn't even hold the title for more than like 5 seconds. Marina Shafir then hands Moxley a plastic bag as he's about to once again choke and suffocate Bryan. But Wheeler Yuta and Darby Allin come down for the save. Darby has a steel chair, and he runs off Moxley and the crew. As he's staring down with Moxley, Allin then turns around and he walks right into Wheeler Yuta, hitting him with a psycho knee. Yes, Wheeler Yuta officially turns heel. They then get Marina Shafir and Pac. They drag Darby to the corner. They tape him up in the corner, so he has to watch what's about to happen. Yuta looks dejected almost immediately. He is still conflicted, but he now knows that Moxley was right, and he has to do this. So Moxley hands Yuta the plastic bag. Bryan stumbles back from the corner, and he stumbles right into Yuta, who looks absolutely still reluctant to do this. He reluctantly puts the plastic bag over Bryan's head, pleading for Danielson to stop fighting. He tells him, stop fighting, just accept it. Darby was forced to watch. He's trying desperately to get out as security, Private Party, and Jeff Jarrett, they're all dispatched by the BCC, and Bryan is just choked out to unconsciousness. You get Claudio Castagnoli grabbing a steel chair. He wraps it around Danielson's neck. Moxley comes into the ring and he gives Danielson last rites, thanking him for his service. And then Claudio stomps down on Bryan's neck with the steel chair, pillmanizing him. The locker room finally empties. All the baby faces come down. Finally, even JR, bitter JR, he was salty all night. JR's like, where the hell have y'all been? The locker room empties as Moxley, Claudio, Pac, Yuta, and Shafir all bail. There is footage from fans in the Tacoma Dome where you could see that Yuta was still conflicted on what he had to do. He's like pushing away Claudio in the crowd. Jim Roswiley asking, where the hell was everyone at? Orange Cassidy, Adam Cole, Daniel Garcia, Mark Briscoe were among the baby faces there. They all help and free Darby Allin as doctors and Jeff Jarrett tend to Danielson. Danielson is loaded up on a stretcher. They loosen up the ring ropes. Excalibur is talking about the actions of Moxley and the crew as you can hear him. He's crying on commentary. The crowd chant, thank you, Bryan, while Darby looks on dejected. Doctors continue to give Bryan medical attention as the crowd goes completely silent. Commentary finally goes silent, and we end the show with the baby faces, Darby Allin and Orange Cassidy, looking on concerned on Bryan Danielson. This might be one of the riskiest, but saddest and most like emotionally driven endings to an AEW pay-per-view ever. And it sets up so much great stuff. Like I said at the top of the show, this was AEW's Infinity War. When I was in Infinity War, I was the only person that knew what was going to happen as far as Thanos winning. But I was in a theater. I was in Magic Johnson Theater in New York, in Harlem. And my sister, I'm there with my sister and my nephew. They go completely quiet. Everyone in the theater goes completely quiet when Thanos is looking at the sun come up and the movie ends and everyone's just silent. And I'm there clapping like, yes, the heel won. The heel won, because I love when heels win. But this was different for me because I'm a huge Bryan Danielson fan. And I did not expect the ending of this show to go down the way he did. I thought Bryan would lose to Moxley, but I thought that he would get the moment to in the sun to have a send-off with the crowd. But this is the ending that I know for sure. Immediately after the show was done, I was like, this is the ending Bryan Danielson won.
Right,
And
yeah.
It sets up, like, his full-time career is over, but Bryan will be back kind of for sporadic appearances. And I love the way this was done because it's not just he has issues with Jon Moxley now. He really has a bigger issue with his former protege, Wheeler Yuta, who turned on him, chokes him up, suffocates him because he feels like it's the right thing. Wheeler Yuta was kind of just really has been coming into his own as a character since the heel turn at All Out. And him finally deciding to side with Moxley's way and the new BCC, I thought that it was the right choice to do it here. It sets him up as, in the top heel faction. And it sets up a long-term story with him and Bryan Danielson when Danielson eventually comes back. Claudio Castagnoli, who more and more in the promo work going into WrestleDream, you heard Bryan talking more about his relationship with Claudio Castagnoli because his relationship with Claudio is even longer than his relationship with Jon Moxley. And you could say Moxley was the one that initiated Wheeler into the Blackpool Combat Club. So it's understandable Wheeler kind of finally siding with him. But it was Bryan who brought Claudio into the Blackpool Combat Club. So that is a bigger betrayal. So it sets up a big match with Bryan and Claudio, with Bryan and Wheeler Yuta, and then the baby faces coming in at the end. It really sets up Orange Cassidy and Jon Moxley, who is Orange Cassidy is the last man that beat Moxley in a title match, an AEW star who beat Moxley in a title match on an AEW pay-per-view at last year's Full Gear. And then Darby Allin is the big kind of hero in all of this because he's going to be the one that feels the most responsible for all of this. Because if he wasn't overzealous and put his title shot on the line against Moxley, this match never happens. If he would have saw Wheeler Yuta turning ahead of time, he doesn't have to watch Danielson being choked out and suffocated. This is all you can kind of see it on his face. He didn't feel like dejected on what Danielson happened to him. I feel like he felt more dejected because he felt responsible for all of this going down. And now we set up the redemption arc for him to eventually be the man who beats Moxley for the AEW World Championship. So as an angle, I think that this was even better than All Out. I thought All Out and the betrayal of Claudio and Moxley on Danielson was tremendous. This was outstanding because it sets up so many different stories, so many people being put over in the end. And Bryan Danielson, this is the way you go out. You put over multiple different people, not only on the people that beat you up and beat you down and you do the stretcher job for, but the people that are going to be kind of fighting in your honor, in your place while you go out and get neck surgery and eventually return next year and next summer or so. But this was so well done. And it capped off after what I thought was a absolutely fantastic main event. I give it 4 3/4 stars, but the post-match, that's 5 stars. That's a 5-star angle, in my opinion. Josh, what did you think about Moxley versus Bryan and the post-match assault from BCC?
The match was great. You know, there was a lot of back and forth going on in the match. The finish itself, I had no issues with. You know, it left you at surprise because it was kind of like, oh shit, like that's it, like that's the he just lost like that. Like, and I like stuff like that. Just because again, it catches people off guard, and sometimes you need that in wrestling, especially in the rivalry that's been going on between between the group and Danielson. I thought that was the right way to go about it. And then the post match was even better. You know, it's just funny because a lot of people are, there's. I know somebody even tried to say like this was like one of the worst endings, but I'm like, if it made you upset and it made you sad, that was the whole point. That was the whole point of the angle. Like that's what they did. They caught you. That's what they need, and especially if this is how they're gonna write Danielson off for a little bit, because again, I don't think he's 100% done. Especially not like this. Eventually he'll have some few matches, but he's not going to be full timer. He's been saying it for a long time. So, I mean, overall, I thought they did great. But then, like, it was mad funny when the fucking AEW locker room came out, right? You had a few people come out before that, and then they're getting their ass whooped. You had Darby, Private Party. They tried to help, and nothing happened. And then when the fucking the rest of the locker room came out, I'm like, oh. Yeah, you guys come out now. Like, that's great. But I mean, overall, it was a great finish. I enjoyed both the finish of the match and how the show finished, how the show ended.
Kris, what about you?
So I'm not as high on the finish as you guys. I didn't hate it. I'm just kind of like looking for upward mobility. I'll say this about Wheeler Yuta, and this is my problem with a lot of these guys in AEW, is they seem in this perpetual motion of being a lackey, and when they seem like they're stepping away from being a lackey, they get dragged right back into being a lackey. Like Sammy Guevara. So from that standpoint, I do hope that Wheeler Yuta cuts a fantastic promo on Wednesday, because I think his character will benefit from that, because I do think he's a guy who's been in this role for how many years has he been there now? Like maybe 2. He's going to benefit from like being able to be his own man eventually. There's multiple schools of thought on the ending like this. There's the idea that I paid however much money to go to an AEW show to see the hometown guy do better, and I didn't get that, so I'm upset. But then there's the school of thought that says, hey, I was there to see Bryan Danielson in his last match, and it was a awesome match. And I love this one guy in the crowd. They like, while Moxley is putting the beats to Bryan Danielson, he says, he's your brother. He's your brother. I thought that shit was so fun.
The guy in the front row. The guy in the front
row. He had like what shirt did he have on again? It was funny as hell though, man. I thought it was great. So ultimately I fall on the end of, I want to see what's gonna happen next. And I agree with you, Sid. I think Daniel Bryan, or why do I keep calling this guy his slave name? I think Bryan Danielson is one of those guys who, he's old school. He wants to go out on his back. He wants to, if he's leaving the territory or if he's stepping away, he wants to make sure the territory that he's in is in good shape. So from that perspective, I didn't mind it. But ultimately, I think if a lot of stuff comes from this, it's a good thing. If Willer Yuta like comes into his own from this, it's a good thing, because I liked what they did where he was the only one that was conflicted, because it showed it showed some independence that the other guys didn't necessarily show. So I liked him being that lone wolf in that situation. But then for him to fall back into that role, I just want to again, it's that AEW gets the benefit of the doubt for me that WWE lost a long time ago. Even in the Triple H era, they haven't fully gained it back. So I am gonna wait and see what happens, but I just gotta wait and see what happens. That's my final answer for that.
I mean, even so, I think again, I think it was the right move. I think Mox winning was the right move, just because, like, honestly, if we would have had Danielson win, then it kind of like, damn, you building up the BCC again, all that build up, and you have him lose again.
I think
so. I get the whole aspect, you know what I'm saying, but like I also get the whole aspect of, people want like what do you call that, like a happy-go-lucky ending when it comes to like certain things like this. Even though, I mean, yeah, they have been saying like, like his last match could be this or that, but they didn't do like what they did with Sting, right? With Sting, there was already a set date. Like, hey, this is my final match.
You got the happy ending with Bryan. The happy ending was All In. This. Someone on social media said that the happy ending was All In. That was the finale, the Sting like retirement matchup, and now this is all the epilogue.
Right,
and
I'm fine with that. Yeah, and I'm fine with that.
And the Sting ending was them having to clean up the mess that WWE did for him his whole fucking run in WWE. So it's not quite the same in that regard. Sting should have, his WWE run should have been way better, and that was AEW saying this is how you retire a legend in a respectful way.
No, but I mean more so as in like when it comes to like what people wanted, right? Like when Sting, when we got like his last match, right? When they announced like this was his last match, a lot of people didn't want him to lose, and he ended up winning, and he ended up retiring a tag champion, right? So I think that's what a lot of people wanted for Danielson, or like, hey, if he wins, guess what? He gets to continue as champion. And I think that's what a lot of people wanted. But, at the same time, I mean, like you're building up something that's going on between, the BCC. They've been running rampant for the last couple of weeks. So this is something I think you had to do now.
Right.
But then also, I just don't think he's not retiring. Like, he's just going to be sporadic. Yeah. Like his appearances are going to be sporadic. So it's not like he's officially retiring, but I get, like there's people who are sad about it. They're saying like, oh, thank you, bro. People are already writing it off. But I'm just like, bro, if you really think that like that's how he's going to like not wrestle again, then hey, good job on them. That's the whole point, right? The good job on them because right, they want to get people like that. But but then it's funny too, like what this does is like we're putting more focus on that. And then like, Mox not only becomes the champion, now he's a 4-time champion. Like I was like, damn, I didn't even realize it until I think SP3 said it. I was like, damn, 4 times. And then I had to look back and I was like, to be
fair to Moxley,
that's why
he wasn't supposed to have 2 of those.
Yeah. No, I'm saying
CM Punk got hurt for the 2nd time, and then the 3rd one was because of Laurel out.
Yeah. So and then he's a 5-time champion overall. If you count I don't count the GCW stuff, but
but in the two top promotions, he's a
if you count he's a 5-time world champ. Here's the thing, Jon Moxley is like, people used to compare him to Stone Cold. He's AEW's Ric Flair, in the sense that Ric Flair was never the top babyface in NWA WCW, but he was always like an upper tier guy there. He was like the soul of that company. He was who you would go to give the company legitimacy, and that's what Moxley is. So I definitely don't mind him winning. I just the Willer Yuta stuff is the stuff I question the most coming out of this, but we'll see. We'll see.
I think that it's the right move. Like I have, Jimmy McIlroy. I was talking to him last night, and he didn't like the move either for Wheeler Yuta because he feels like he's a boring heel in comparison to his babyface character over the last couple of weeks, being conflicted between the two sides. And I was like, if he's left on his own as a babyface, I don't see much happening for him. I think that he just would have been the punching bag for Blackpool Combat Club because it's obvious that Darby Allin is the guy that's going to be the one that overcomes the Blackpool Combat Club and eventually becomes the new AEW World Champion. You could get Orange Cassidy a big title match. I think that I seen in the chat that someone said Darby versus Mox at Full Gear, most likely. Alexander said, I disagree with that. I don't think they're going to do it that soon. I think that the whole thing with the Jerry Lynn segment and Orange being one of the first guys for the baby faces to come out is they're going to position Orange Cassidy as the first challenger for Jon Moxley at Full Gear. And, that'll probably be a loss with Moxley winning, but Darby is either you do it at World's End or you do it in Australia for the first pay-per-view of 2025. I think that you probably do it in 2025 because Moxley, despite, what people think, and not everybody's a Jon Moxley fan, this is his first reign as a heel, the top heel in AEW. His 3 previous reigns was him as a babyface. And if you're going to really establish him and the BCC as the top heel faction and that they're taking over the company, he needs to have a reign of at least 3-4 months.
Right. And I think with Moxley, like it's I definitely understand the kickback, but I think that lost what I was gonna say. I'll remember in a second. But I think that Moxley is like you need to have the belt on him for a little while. And I saw someone talking. The thing with having Swerve come out there and breaking up everything, if that's not the story you're telling, if you have Swerve come out at the end of the show and run interference or stop that from happening, you expect a Swerve Moxley match. So you can't do that immediately. If that's not the match you're giving people, you can't have Swerve run out.
And that would be out of character for Swerve. He's selfish. He's all about himself.
Right. Yeah. So that all these matches will happen eventually, I'm sure. And we'll see what happens with Darby and Mox, and give it a few months, and I think it'll be fine. I have to see what happens next.
Agreed there. We got Alexander who says, I like the OC versus Mox idea. Last year they fought for the international title. Now this year they fight for the world title. Yeah. Mm-hmm. 1 year in the making. So yeah, a lot to discuss, a lot that we're going to further discuss on the flagship podcast coming up next Saturday, as well as through the week. Me and Jimmy will talk a little bit about the closing angle on AE Ramble on Thursday as well. But we've made it to the end of our WrestleDream review. Want to thank y'all for sounding off in the chat. You guys have been very busy, very busy in the chat, talking throughout the show about your thoughts on the show. But of course, final call for super chat donations. Want to thank Vala B for showing his support throughout this review. And if you want to show your support, send a super chat donation as we sign things off, and let us know your match of the night, your MVP, your LVP. Out of 10, what did you give the show? Did you give the show a thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs in the middle? But for me, Josh, and Kris, for AEW WrestleDream 2024, in 3, 2, 1, thumbs up across the board for all 3 of us. Out of 10, I'm going to give it 8.5. I thought this was a very good to great show. Multiple great matches up and down the card. A match of the year candidate with the three-way, an excellent main event, an excellent opener, a great women's title matchup, a great tag team title matchup. So many different things to take from the show, plus 2 huge returns including a third return with Swerve Strickland as well. So very noteworthy and great show overall from AEW. So 8.5 out of 10 for me. Kris?
I give it like a 7.9 out of 10. I'm glad you reminded. I completely forgot there was a pay-per-view last night. So I'm glad that you told, and because I couldn't even, it's not on Bleacher Report anymore. So it took me a while to find it, but you gave me the pay-per-view.com thing. So it was a good show. It was a fine show. I'll like I said, I always retroactively look at these shows. So like if I might give this a 10 out of 10 come the end of the year, depending on like how everything comes together, you know.
Yeah. This might be a very important show when you look at the year overall for AEW. Josh, what did you give the show?
8.5. Because 8.5. I felt like there wasn't really a lot of bad in the show, right?
Mm-hmm.
To even right, because even like the match that nobody really wanted to see which was the ROH title match. That kind of passed at least my expectations. So it wasn't all around. I think it was a good night.
Agreed there. Who was your MVP for the show, Josh?
MVP. It's a good question. My MVP. Takeshita finally got his title win.
What about you, Kris?
I give it to Takeshita, and I also give it to I give it to everyone that was in that talking segment with MVP, Swerve, and Shelton, and Prince Nana, because I thought it was a good segment. I really do think that's going to move things forward in a good direction. So
I am going to give it to past, present, future members of the Blackpool Combat Club, because that's the thing I'm going to remember the most from this show is the main event with Jon Moxley, Bryan Danielson, Wheeler Yuta's heel turn, Claudio Castagnoli, Pac, Marina Shafir, all of those guys involved in that closing angle. I'm going to give them the BCC past and present members the MVP for the show. LVP for the show, I'm going to give it to Katsuyori Shibata. He had a good showing here, but he was dumb as hell with losing by that pinfall and not letting go of the rear naked choke. So, kayfabe reason, but still a reason to give him the LVP. Josh?
LVP, damn, because I know people are saying Jericho, but I'm like, wait, is it Jericho by default? Because
that's what I feel like that is. That's just Jericho by default because he had a good match.
Which is like kind of like it's not really a real reason. Damn, I'm trying to think. I'm gonna say LVP. I'm gonna say Christopher Daniels. I'm sick and tired of that guy. I'm so sick of him. Throwing out Okada.
What about you, Kris?
My LVP goes to Tony Khan for trying to get that chat over and just being so fucking awkward, and it was just hilarious for all the wrong reasons. So I have to give it to TK. He's got to take the L for that.
And match of the night, like I said, I loved Hangman versus Jay White. I love the main event with Bryan and Moxley. And there was multiple different matches throughout the night that stood out with Willow and Mariah, Young Bucks and Private Party, Darby and Brody. But I'm going to give match of the night, of course, to that three-way. The greatest three-way in AEW history. One of the greatest three-ways ever with Konosuke Takeshita, Will Ospreay, and Ricochet. Kris?
Yeah, for me, it's the three-way as well. I just, like I said, I'm not usually the biggest fan of three-way matches, but I think this three-way match sets all three guys on the right trajectory. So I can't say enough good things about it.
Josh?
Triple threat match. Easily.
We're all in agreement there. But that brings us to a close on our AEW WrestleDream 2024 review. Want to thank all of you for joining us live. And of course, thank you to my good brothers, the True Jaw Josh and Professor Kris. Always one of our favorites to have here on the channel. So I want to give you the floor. Let everybody know where they can follow you on social media and when they will see you again.
Yo, what's up, everyone? So, yeah, you could follow me at KMEZ Does It on Twitter. You could just search my name, Christopher Ely with a K, and all of my socials will come up. And then we're doing our next episode of the NWA podcast next Sunday night. I don't think we're having a guest, but I'm not sure. But yeah, definitely next Sunday. Check us out. 8 p.m. Eastern.
For sure. True Jaw Josh, let everybody know where they can follow you.
You can follow me, JMPunk321, Twitter and Instagram. And next time I'll be back, it will be for THH 300. I'll be back on for that episode because I got the weekend off because I'll be busy, but I got the weekend off from the channel. But yeah, I'll be back for 300. That's a big episode that's gonna be in store.
Indeed. Check us out for that. Check us out for THH 299 coming up on Saturday as well. And I will be back here live tomorrow at around 1:05 p.m. Eastern time with J News to review NJPW King of Pro Wrestling, which goes live today tonight at 4 a.m. Eastern time. If you want to watch it live or if you want to watch it in the morning, njpwworld.com. You can watch it on demand. You can follow me on the Twitter machine at TrueHillSB3. Follow the gang, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at True Hill Heat. Patreon.com/True Hill Heat. We got plenty of cool content coming to our Patreon over there. We just posted the Tony Khan conference call from this past week ahead of WrestleDream, so you can check that out over there right now. And that's the best place to support us when we are not live here. Check out the True Hill Heat Flash It podcast from yesterday, 298, with the True Jaw Josh, Miss Chrissy Love, and Sat E. Nyangi talking about this week in wrestling. And check out everything else we got going on the channel. But for Professor Kris, for the True Jaw Josh, it is me, your True Hill Phenom SP3. This has been our AEW WrestleDream 2024 review week. We're signing off until next time.